Chapter 41. This was Ethan's first time using the Flu Network, and it was far from a pleasant experience. Engulfed in flames, he felt as though he was being sucked into a vast vortex, his body spinning uncontrollably. The whistling in his ears was deafening, and the brief journey felt interminably long. It wasn't until he was greeted by the cold winter wind that he realized he had arrived at his destination. Ethan found himself in front of an open fireplace, situated in the heart of a small village. Irondale, as it was known, comprised roughly 10 houses, nestled within a mountainous area and built on a hillside, giving the village a staggered appearance. Dominating the skyline was a windmill perched at the village's highest point, standing like a sentinel under the dim night sky, its white cap stark against the darkness. It was Christmas Eve, and snow gently fell from the sky, blanketing the ground and rooftops in white. The houses glowed warmly, their lights a testament to the festive celebrations happening within. The streets were deserted, as everyone was indoors, making merry on this special night. Ethan's goal, the Moonstone Garden, lay ahead at the mountain's base. He tightened his thick robe around him, drew his wand, and cast a series of enchantments to fortify himself. Bear's tenacity, bull's strength, cat's elegance, eagle's majesty, fox's cunning, owl's wisdom, mage's armor, frost protection, blur, and a spell to make his footsteps lighter. With his physical abilities enhanced beyond those of an ordinary person, he was well prepared to face the wind and snow. Navigating the streets of Irondale with ease, thanks to his enhanced speed, Ethan reached the terrain he remembered after about 20 minutes. He was aware that reality might differ from his memories of the game, with both Irondale and the surrounding hills being much larger in real life. Approaching a familiar steep hillside, Ethan opted not to proceed further. Instead, he approached a cliff on the left and cast the spider walking technique on himself, allowing him to scale walls with ease. After ensuring he was alone, he descended the mountain wall. Before long, he discovered an open space hidden within the mountain, home to a stone formation now covered in snow, devoid of any moon-crazed beasts or mysterious symbols. Ethan wasn't deterred. His true destination lay further ahead. Soon, he encountered a smooth mountain wall, which puzzled him. According to the game, a vast underground palace containing the Scholar's Moonstone was hidden here. Although unsure why his quest for the Griffon Beak led him here, he was convinced that if it couldn't be found above ground, it must be within this underground palace. However, the expected entrance was nowhere to be seen, replaced by what appeared to be a natural mountain wall. Ethan wondered if his memory was at fault. Deciding to trust his perception over his sight, he closed his eyes and cast Psychic Scouting. His mind's tendrils extended, touching the mountain wall, but found nothing, indicating that the wall was an illusion. Realizing this, Ethan frowned and cast Detection Magic on the wall. His suspicions were confirmed. The wall was not only an illusion, but also protected by warning magic and spells designed to repel muggles. Not long ago, a spell had been cast, indicating the presence of people inside. Ethan quickly concluded that anyone lurking here on Christmas Eve was likely up to no good, possibly a dark wizard or a poacher. He reasoned that it was wise to have prepared himself with numerous protective spells. For a moment, Ethan contemplated leaving. Having been exposed to magic for less than half a year, he was still in the early stages of his magical education and not yet ready to showcase his strength or confront others directly. While he felt confident handling one or two dark wizards, a larger group would pose a significant challenge. However, the thought of abandoning his quest for the Griffon Beak after coming so close was unbearable. What if these individuals were also aft or the Griffon Beak? What if they had it with them? If he left now, there was no telling when or if he would stumble upon another clue. Ethan debated internally, should I sneak in and assess the situation before deciding? My invisibility technique is much more effective than the illusion charm. I can investigate without being detected, as long as I'm cautious. He rationalized that if the people inside were not formidable, or if there was a chance to stealthily acquire the Griffon Beak, it would be worth the risk. It's merely reconnaissance. If the situation becomes untenable, I can always retreat. It would be cowardly to flee without even seeing the threat, Ethan concluded after 5 minutes of deliberation. Resolved, He cast invisibility on himself, skillfully avoided the magical alarms, and entered the underground palace. He followed the corridor deep into the mountain, eventually reaching a spacious, circular stone chamber, adorned with ancient Celtic-style reliefs and moss, indicating its age. The walls were lit by torches recently ignited by visitors. Ethan noted that these were not the eternal immortal fire, confirming recent human activity. The chamber had 4 exits, the path he came from, 2 blocked by collapses and 1 viable corridor to the left. After ensuring it was safe, Ethan proceeded down the left corridor, moving silently to another stone door at its end. This time, he overheard a conversation. "Do you still have the wine? It's too dull guarding this door. Why not enjoy a drink?" A male voice suggested. Another voice, with a distinct accent Ethan couldn't place, retorted, "Are you mad? If the boss finds out we're drinking on duty, he'd have our heads." What's the harm? On a beautiful Christmas Eve, while everyone else is cozy by the fire with their families, we're stuck in this cold tomb. We deserve a bit of comfort, the first voice argued persuasively. The accented man seemed to relent, and sounds of movement followed from behind the door. Ethan suddenly recalled the distinct sound of a glass bottle colliding with stone, followed by the fizz of bubbles as the cork was popped. It appeared they had successfully obtained it. After consuming the contents, Ethan realized his opportunity was approaching. Today's update 5/4, plus update 4/12, Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day Family Feedback. Recharge 100 and receive 500 VIP points. Seize the opportunity now. Activity period September 29th to October 6th. Chapter 42. Drink again. Drink again. Not long after, the sound of 2 people engaging in a drinking challenge echoed from behind the stone gate. "Darcy, I really didn't expect you to actually have a bag that extends space," said the first male voice, clear and with a standard accent. "Aren't you worried the boss will be furious when he finds out?" "You're not afraid of sneaking drinks, so why should I worry about hiding a bag?" retorted Darcy, his accent foreign but filled with pride. "You're joking. I'm courageous and skilled at concealing things." Their conversation continued with praises and jests, ranging from bravery to physical strength, until suddenly the topic shifted, piquing Ethan's interest from outside the door. Darcy, with a sudden concern, asked, "With us drinking like this, what if someone breaks in again?" Ted laughed off the concern. "Today's Christmas Eve. Even the Aurors are home with their families. Who would bother joining us misfortunates for poker in the wilderness?" Ethan, listening from outside, felt a momentary annoyance, but continued to eavesdrop. "But what about the Auror we captured today?" Darcy pointed out sharply. "Those girls could come after us on Christmas Eve." "They actually captured an Auror today?" Ethan's attention sharpened. Capturing an Auror indicated a high level of professionalism and experience with evading law enforcement. He immediately perceived the group as a significant threat. Ted, dismissive of the concern, said, "Bah, that woman just graduated this year. What kind of Auror is that?" "And besides," he continued, revealing more than perhaps intended, "the boss mentioned the Ministry of Magic hasn't issued any arrest missions recently. It was purely by chance she stumbled upon us. And, she wasn't even in uniform, so it was all just improvisation. Nothing will come of it. Even if the Auror department notices her absence, it'll take days. By then, we'll have found the treasure and made our escape," Ted concluded, his confidence seemingly reassuring Darcy. Comforted by Ted's words, Darcy relaxed, and the two resumed their merry drinking. However, Ethan's mind was racing. From their conversation, it was clear their target was the Scholar's Moonstone, a potent magical artifact known for its ability to attract moon-crazed beasts and enhance the prophetic abilities of centaurs. Securing the stone could be invaluable, not just for its magical properties, but also as a means to forge alliances with the centaurs of the Forbidden Forest. Realizing the men were distracted and possibly inebriated, Ethan saw an opportunity for action. Moreover, the captured Auror might still be alive and could serve as an unexpected ally. After careful consideration, Ethan decided it was time to act. However, a direct approach required caution. The men inside, though drunk, were not to be underestimated. To ensure success, he needed to separate them. Ethan, with a plan in mind, pressed his ear against the door once more. Quietly, he extended his mental powers, enveloping the two men in his mind's eye, ready to manipulate the situation to his advantage. Ethan quietly utilized the power of the mind field to cast the suggestion technique on one of them. The suggestion technique is a 3-ring enchantment and control spell that influences the subject's actions by suggesting a certain course of action. The suggestion must appear reasonable, and the spell automatically expires if it requires self-harm. Through this attempt, Ethan gained a deeper understanding of enchantment spells, realizing that they essentially control the will. He learned about the specialization in the School of Enchantment and Control, which meant he became proficient in enchantment and control spells. As he advanced in his wizard profession, he would gradually master all the core spells of this school. Furthermore, Ethan discovered that charm control spells could be considered psychic powers, enhancing his psychic level by +1. This realization was significant for Ethan because it meant his control spells could be cast silently and at will, just like psychic powers, but with the added benefit of magical properties that could be enhanced through various means, such as super magic. This allowed him to influence others without direct interaction, leaving no trace of manipulation. For instance, Ted, who was in the middle of his meal, suddenly felt an urge to urinate. Muttering about the inconvenience, Ted stood up and reminded his companion to save some drink for him before heading towards the door. Ethan, having already stepped back to blend against the wall, observed as Ted, dressed in black clothes and a Scottish plaid scarf, made his way out. Ethan followed Ted through the first hall and into the corridor, leading to the door protected by an illusion. Ted, preferring not to bring the smell of urine back inside, decided to relieve himself outdoors, which played perfectly into Ethan's plan. As Ted finished and was about to return, Ethan struck with a sudden Frost Nova spell. Ted felt an icy energy envelop him, freezing his feet to the ground, and even before he could react, his movements became sluggish due to the intense cold. His attempt to reach for his wand was thwarted as the frost spread, stopping just short of covering more sensitive areas. Then, Ted saw a young boy with black hair, about 1.5 meters tall, appearing before him, looking no older than 11 or 12 years old. Today's Update 4, Additional Update 12. Chapter 43. If it weren't for the freezing coldness enveloping his body and the childish voice that had recited the curse, Ted would never have associated the attacker with the child standing before him. "What are you doing here?" The boy's voice was cold and ruthless, yet unmistakably childish. "Think carefully before you speak. If you lie, I will let the frost climb an inch further up your waist," Ethan warned, brandishing his wand with a threatening gesture. Ted's wrist was encased in ice, rendering him immobile. The chilling effect of the ice sobered him up instantly, despite not understanding the spell that had been cast. Realizing the child's control over ice, Ted was genuinely terrified. He knew all too well the consequences if the ice crept 2 inches closer to his waist. His limbs, much more vulnerable, could suffer irreparable damage. Desperate to avoid such fates, he stammered out his fear. "We are tomb robbers. We came here to steal the burial treasures. Please forgive me, sir." Before he could finish, the cold air crept up another inch, making even his teeth chatter. "Humph, you are indeed dishonest, coming to Moonstone Garden to rob tombs. Do you think I'm too young to know better?" Ethan's words made Ted realize he could no longer conceal the truth. The name Moonstone Garden was one Ted's boss had discovered in obscure historical texts. That Ethan mentioned it so casually indicated his superior knowledge and power. Ted wondered if Ethan was affiliated with the Ministry of Magic or another formidable entity. In his panic, Ted repeatedly apologized. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to lie. I'm sorry. Surely we have no quarrel. If you could let me go, we'd be very grateful." This time, before he could finish, the ice spread, freezing his entire arm. "Answer only what I ask, and keep silent otherwise. Or you can choose to lose your arm," Ethan stated coldly. No, please, I was wrong. Just ask, I'll answer anything." Ted was genuinely frightened. Ethan's ruthlessness and decisiveness were unlike any child's. Ted suspected he might be dealing with someone who had found a way to revert to youth. Regardless, Ted dared not harbor any further thoughts of deceit and answered Ethan's questions obediently. Ethan quickly ascertained the nature of his adversaries. They were not dark wizards, but belonged to a group of poachers. In the wizarding world, poachers, much like their Muggle counterparts, hunted magical creatures for profit. However, these individuals were far more extreme and powerful than Muggle poachers. The allure of high profits from the magical world's poaching was irresistible. After all, while Muggles might use the furs of rare animals for decoration, materials from magical creatures could be used to create potent alchemical products and potions. This made poachers in the magical world particularly audacious, especially after the enactment of the secrecy law, which intensified the conflict between poachers and the authorities. The Ministry of Magic's conflict with poacher organizations had escalated significantly, reaching a point of direct confrontation. These organizations were no longer content with mere theft. They began to dominate entire mountains, using castles as bases to openly challenge the ministry. The 18th and 19th centuries marked the peak of poacher activity in the wizarding world, a trend that persisted in Great Britain until the late 19th century. During this era, a mysterious event led to the disappearance of a notorious gang of dark wizards and poachers around Hogwarts, resulting in nearly a century of silence from such groups in Britain. The resurgence of dark wizards coincided with the rise of two generations of the Dark Lord. According to Ted, their leader, Pekoe Curtis, hailed from a lineage of formidable poachers with strong ties to Hogwarts. The reasons behind their sudden inactivity a century ago remained a mystery. However, with the rise of the Dark Lord in recent decades, Pekoe revived his family's illicit trade, assembling a crew to resume poaching activities. Their current mission was driven by Pekoe's discovery of a treasure mentioned in his family's archives, believed to be linked to the centaur and the nearly extinct magical creature, the golden snidget. The golden snidget, a highly rare and protected bird, is known for its spherical body, slender beak, and sparkling ruby eyes. It possesses remarkable speed and agility, capable of changing direction mid-flight due to the flexible rotation of its wing joints. Initially, Quidditch seekers pursued live snidgets instead of the golden snitch, leading to the species' near extinction. Now, as an endangered species, snidgets are under strict global protection, making them highly valuable to poachers like Pekoe Curtis and his crew. Ethan, having listened to the explanation, understood the poachers' motives, but was curious about an encounter Ted had omitted, their run-in with an Auror. Ted's sudden panic and fear were palpable as he realized Ethan was aware of the Aurors, fearing retribution for not mentioning them earlier. Ethan, amused, yet maintaining a stern demeanor, demanded details about the Auror. Ted, regaining some composure, explained that they had stumbled upon the Auror, who had attempted to blend in as a local villager. They captured her, but due to their rush to explore the ruins, they merely restrained her in a separate room without causing harm. He described the Auror as a young, newly graduated witch with distinctive pink hair, a description that led Ethan to surmise her identity. Ethan's final inquiry concerned whether any of the poachers possessed items related to a griffin, prompting a moment of silence from Ted. As Ethan's patience waned, Ted hurriedly responded, revealing the complexities of their encounter and the potential implications for their mission. Yes, indeed, our Pekoe possesses a pendant crafted from a griffon's beak. He constantly wears it on his chest, frequently flaunting it as if it were a badge of honor. According to him, it's a family heirloom that symbolizes the Curtis family's illustrious history. Does this illustrious past suggest that they once hunted a griffin? It's certainly an act befitting a family of poachers. Ethan nodded, his objective for this journey now crystal clear. As the saying goes, possessing such a treasure means you also possess the means to meet your end. Chapter 44. After posing the final question, Ethan fell into a contemplative silence. Ted, the wizard before him, returned his gaze with a pitiful look, his eyes seemingly pleading for mercy. Both understood that the time had come to determine Ted's fate. Ethan observed the wizard's pallid complexion, inhaled deeply, and directed his wand at him. In a moment, frost rapidly encased Ted's body, silencing any potential outcry. I'm aware of the heinous acts you poachers commit. Whether it involves wizards, muggles, or magical creatures, profit is your sole aim. So don't hold any grudges. You've brought this upon yourself. Ethan muttered, his voice cold and resolute. It was a judgment tinged with iciness, serving also as a justification to soothe his conscience. The ice won't immediately end your life. If fortune favors you, you might survive until my return, at which point the Aurors may decide to spare you. Ethan's decision not to kill stemmed not from an inability to overcome a psychological barrier. He had lived 2 lives, after all, and was no stranger to accepting harsh realities. Rather, he considered the welfare of a captured Auror. According to Ted's confession, the Auror had been detained without torture or mistreatment, suggesting that a rescue would instantly provide Ethan with an ally in combat. Ethan was acutely aware that he might struggle to eliminate the remaining 8 poachers in the ruins alone. Securing the Griffin Beak pendant and the Scholar Moonstone could necessitate the Auror's assistance. However, no Auror would willingly collaborate with a young wizard known for ruthless killing. By merely freezing Ted, Ethan aimed to make a favorable impression on potential allies. If the Auror was indeed the individual he suspected, this encounter could pave the way for future cooperation, making it crucial to set the right tone from the outset. After dealing with Ted, Ethan cast an invisibility charm on himself and navigated back to the corridor, eventually reaching the room where he had previously lingered. There, he encountered a blond man with a hooked nose, visibly intoxicated, who staggered out with a wineglass in hand, loudly calling out, "Ted! Ted! Ted, where are you?" Brave enough to drink, but too scared to pee. Ethan, shielded by invisibility and undetectable to the inebriated wizard, seized the opportunity. He disarmed the man, named Darcy, without resorting to magic, then used a freezing spell to immobilize his limbs. The sudden chill sobered Darcy, who looked at Ethan in alarm, struggling to articulate his thoughts. "You're correct. Your companion Ted has been apprehended by me. Through interrogation, I've extracted considerable information from your associates," Ethan stated, his youthful voice betraying a chilling seriousness. "Now, let's engage in a question-and-answer session. Should your responses diverge from those of your comrades, you'll deeply regret ever coming here." Darcy, confronted by the imposing figure of Ethan, who, despite his youthful appearance, exuded an aura of menace, was gripped by fear. He hastily divulged everything he knew, aligning closely with the information previously obtained. "You've made a wise choice, Darcy, by not lying," Ethan remarked, a satisfied smile gracing his features. Making the other party shiver again, Dulcie made a somewhat naive request, hoping to confuse Ethan for a moment. "In that case, my lord, can you let us both go?" However, he underestimated Ethan's cunning. Shaking his head, Ethan cast Frost Nova once more, encasing the wizard and his companions in frost, just like before. Ethan diligently searched them, and together with his previous findings, he amassed nearly 100 galleons. It was indeed a lucrative outcome from their nefarious activities. The most valuable find was a dragon skin wallet, enchanted with a space extension spell, which the blonde wizard had kept for personal use. The wallet's internal space was modest, about 1 cubic meter, suitable only for storing small items. It was a far cry from Newt Scamander's suitcase, which could contain an entire zoo. Ethan didn't immediately seek out the captured Auror. Instead, he searched the room thoroughly. Guarded by the 2 wizards, this room served as the temporary camp for the group of poachers and their ceremonial space. Here, Ethan discovered more valuables, including several fire ash snake eggs, a bundle of silent bird feathers, and various other materials, which he stored in his new wallet. With these treasures secured, Ethan became invisible once more and continued deeper into the ruins, guided by the confessions of the 2 wizards. After passing through 2 ruined stone doors, Ethan entered a new rotunda. Instead of proceeding forward, he opted to open a side door. Behind the decaying door was a dark, narrow room, pitch black and devoid of any light source. Ethan flicked his wand, casting dancing lights. A faint light emerged from the wand's tip, venturing deeper into the room, while Ethan remained by the door, shrouded in darkness. This strategy ensured that any enemy illuminated by the light would be visible to Ethan, while he remained unseen in the dark. Fortunately, the intelligence provided by the 2 wizards proved accurate. There were no enemies in the room. The light revealed a figure tied up tightly, staring in surprise at the light. It was a young woman, about 20 years old, with a beautiful heart-shaped face, black eyes that sparkled under the dancing light, and notably, a shawl of pink hair that made her stand out. She was Nymphadora Tonks, the only disguised magus in the original work, a member of the Order of the Phoenix, and Remus Lupin's lover. Ethan had suspected her identity during the interrogation, given her distinctive features, but seeing her in person, he was struck by her beauty, which surpassed her portrayal in the films. The characters in the Harry Potter series often differ from their movie counterparts. For instance, the novel never mentioned Tonks having a large nose, a detail added in the films. The Tonks before Ethan matched his aesthetic perfectly, highlighting the discrepancies between the book's descriptions and their cinematic adaptations. The characters in this narrative will not strictly adhere to their movie portrayals. For example, Zhang Chu in the novel is considered a beauty, likened to the youthful Zhao Linger. This deviation from the films is intentional, aiming to offer a fresh perspective on familiar characters. Similarly, Tonks is envisioned here not as she appeared in the films, but rather inspired by the short-haired version of Seraphine, avoiding the unflattering portrayal of her nose in the movies. This approach allows for a unique reinterpretation of the characters, enriching the narrative with new visual imagery and character depth. Chapter 45, Torn Apart. Ethan pointed his wand, and the ropes binding Tonks fell away. Following the same procedure, he also removed the gag from her mouth. "Thank you so much," the female Auror said, squinting as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. Upon recognizing her rescuer, she exclaimed in surprise, "You, this child, why are you here?" "I came here in search of treasure, but unexpectedly found poachers and a captured Auror," Ethan explained briefly. He then took out an invigorating potion from his pocket and administered it to Tonks. After consuming the potion, her complexion improved noticeably, and she breathed a sigh of relief. "Your preparations are quite thorough. Thank you. Do you have anything to eat?" "Here." Ethan handed her a piece of dry bread. "It's from the poacher's camp, so it's not much, but it'll have to do." He had already tried a piece himself. The bread was dry and bland, but Tonks didn't seem to mind. She devoured it eagerly, then took Ethan's water bottle and drank deeply. "Ah, finally saved," she exclaimed, then enthusiastically patted Ethan on the head. "Thank you, little brother. If it weren't for you, I might have died here. I owe you my life." "Don't call me little brother," Ethan said with a stern face, skillfully avoiding her hand. He then handed her 2 wands. "My name is Ethan Green. Try these, see which one feels right for you." "Thank you, little brother. Mr. Green. My name is Nymphadora Tonks, but please just call me Tonks," she said, clarifying that she disliked her full name. After testing both wands, she handed one back to Ethan, keeping the other. "It's a shame my own wand was broken. Where did you find these?" "Where else? I took them from the 2 guards," Ethan replied, pleased to see she could wield magic again. "Then, Tonks, you can just call me Ethan. Can you stand? Are you able to walk?" "I'll give it a try. Hey, Ethan, can't you support me a bit longer?" Tonks attempted to stand on her own, but her limbs were numb from being restrained for so long. She stumbled and had to rely on Ethan for support. Her embarrassed expression made Ethan chuckle, so he helped her up, placing her arm over his shoulder for a rehabilitation training session in the small room. Soon, the effects of the potion and bread alleviated the numbness, allowing Tonks to walk a few steps independently. Feeling more confident in her mobility, Tonks walked out of the room with Ethan. As they proceeded, she asked, "You mentioned encountering 2 poachers. After taking their wands, what did you do with them?" "What else could I do? I couldn't kill them, but I also couldn't risk them alerting others. So, I trapped them. I left another one at the entrance," Ethan explained, leading Tonks to the poacher's camp. There, he pointed out a blonde wizard encased in ice. Tonks was astonished to see that the young boy before her had single-handedly defeated 2 adult wizards, especially using the rare freezing magic. "I never expected your magic to be so powerful at such a young age. I couldn't have done that when I was your age. But—" Tonks hesitated, then offered some consolation. "At such a young age, you should be in school, enjoying time with your classmates. You shouldn't be exposed to such dangers. Are you from Hogwarts?" "What year are you in?" "I just started at Hogwarts this year, and am in Ravenclaw," Ethan replied, slightly annoyed at being treated like a child. Age doesn't necessarily correlate with maturity, Tonks. Don't forget that you were saved by a child like me. Ethan's words left Tonks speechless, and she had to suppress a multitude of advice she wanted to give. Despite her pride in being older and more mature, she had never been captured by a poaching team. Yet, the child who saved her managed to defeat 2 adult wizards on his own. From this perspective, she realized she had indeed been too reckless, as her Auror instructor had mentioned, and perhaps this young boy was more suited to be an Auror than she was. However, she didn't want to admit defeat. Don't be so confrontational, Junior. I'm just a senior sharing valuable life experience. I'm from Hufflepuff, having just graduated this year, and now I'm an intern Auror. Tonks said this with evident pride. It's understandable, considering Hogwarts graduates who become Aurors need excellent grades, specifically at least 5 NET certificates with grades no lower than good, a requirement that eliminates many candidates. But Ethan was unimpressed. It's clear that even if you weren't a trainee Auror, you wouldn't be foolish enough to get caught by a group of thieves. You actually called them a group of thieves. If Pikal hears this, he'll be furious. After Tonks finished her complaint, she attempted to justify her capture, saying, "Actually, if it hadn't been for their surprise attack, well, I mean, if my transformation into disguise mags had been discovered, you must have heard of disguise mags. In short, if I hadn't been careless and failed to dodge, those poachers wouldn't have been able to capture me, an Auror." "Ah, so you were caught just because of your own mistake?" Ethan nodded, pointing out sharply. "Then it can only be because you were careless. Despite your powerful ability as disguise mags, you still exposed your flaws and your identity was discovered. No matter how you look at it, it's not the action of a wise person." "You're such an annoying child, so adept at pointing out others' faults. Even if you know this, you shouldn't say it out loud. Can't you spare me some dignity?" Tonks was left speechless, managing only a bitter smile. "Humph, who told you to treat me like a child all the time?" As they bickered and walked, they found themselves laughing together. Ethan, though only 11 years old in appearance, had a much more mature mindset, while Tonks, at 18, was technically an adult, but still possessed a lively spirit. Having just graduated, she hadn't yet shed her Hogwarts student mentality, where she had been a notorious prankster. Upon reaching the gate and confirming that the other poacher was still alive, Tonks turned to Ethan. "It's really too dangerous here. How about I escort you out first and then return with reinforcements from the Ministry of Magic?" Concerned for Ethan's safety, Tonks suggested, but Ethan refused. "I don't want that. Let me tell you, why don't we just go in and deal with them? You, the Auror, can't do it, right? According to the intelligence, there are 6 of them. How many can you handle? Stop talking nonsense. I have to take you back first." Tonks was becoming anxious. "Listen, Ethan, I appreciate that you took the risk to rescue me, but this is a battle for adult wizards, and I can't let you continue to take risks. How would you explain this to your parents and Hogwarts? So please stop making trouble and let me take you back." "Thank you for your concern, but I don't have parents, and I can take responsibility for my own safety." Facing Tonks's kindness, Ethan simply shook his head. "Therefore, my choice is to refuse." Special thanks to the Devil CDK for the reward and the family feedback during the Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points. Don't miss out on the deposit now. Activity time, September 29th to October 6th. Chapter 46. Why do you have to go in? Being rejected by Ethan, Tonks was visibly puzzled. "There's a whole gang of poachers here. You don't really think of them as ordinary poachers, do you?" "I'm here to hunt for treasure, and these poachers are after the same thing. If we wait for the Ministry of Magic, who knows how long it will take. Today is Christmas Eve. What if they escape with the treasure?" Ethan explained. Tonks nodded in understanding. As an Auror, albeit one with only 6 months of experience, she was well aware of the Ministry's efficiency, or lack thereof. Besides, even if the Ministry's support arrives in time and we manage to eliminate this group of poachers, who will claim the loot? My efforts would be wasted, Ethan continued. "So, whether you're coming or not, I'm going in." Tonks found herself in a dilemma due to Ethan's attitude. Seeing him ready to leave, she stamped her foot in frustration. Fine, Fine, I'll go in with you. Perhaps it was Ethan's provocation that swayed her, or maybe she harbored her own adventurous spirit. Regardless, Tonks agreed, showing that she was still far from the seasoned auror she would become during Voldemort's era. At this point, she hadn't joined the Order of the Phoenix or met Lupin, leaving her beliefs somewhat unformed. Ethan's challenge served as a temptation, nudging her towards potentially aligning with his views. Tonks grabbed Ethan's arm, her expression serious. Listen, Ethan, I agreed to go in with you, but remember, I'm the Auror here. You must promise to follow my lead once we're inside. Understood? Yes, Sister Tonks, Ethan replied. Although he disliked being treated like a child, he knew to behave since he had gained an advantage. Since you've agreed to accompany me, could you do me another favor? Do you know how to cast the Obliviate spell? I do. Why do you ask? These two prisoners, please cast the Obliviate spell on them. I don't want them remembering me, and the same goes for any enemies we encounter next. Tonks was curious. Why? Think about it. I'm just an ordinary young wizard, not an Auror. I don't need the credit for capturing poachers. They'll forget about me, and all the credit will go to you, Ethan explained sheepishly. Besides, what if they reveal my name after being caught? These poachers are widespread, and some may have connections. I don't want to become a target. Little sly, now you realize you're just an ordinary young wizard, Tonks said, both annoyed and amused by his reasoning. I suppose I can let you have this one, though I suspect your main concern is the latter. Despite her teasing, Tonks agreed to his request. They moved the prisoners closer to the fire. After Ethan lifted the freezing spell, Tonks restrained them again and skillfully cast the Obliviate spell, erasing their memories of the past few hours. Ethan watched Tonks work, nodding in satisfaction. This encounter had given him a good sense of her character. At this age, Tonks was a spirited young woman who wasn't afraid to express her feelings. Although she was an Auror, she showed a willingness to bend the rules for those she cared about, evident in her readiness to use the Obliviate spell for Ethan's sake. Importantly, she hadn't been influenced by Dumbledore's ideologies. Moreover, she seemed to have taken a liking to Ethan, whether because of his act of saving her or because she was genuinely charmed by him. Using his psychic powers, Ethan could sense the other person's affection for him. This kind of love resembled that of a sister to a brother, yet it didn't exclude the possibility of evolving into something more in the future. For someone like Tonks, liking someone essentially meant being ready to stand by his side unconditionally. In this way, establishing a connection with Tonks may be the real reward of this trip, Ethan thought to himself. Although he had only been at school for half a year and was still developing, Ethan had already anticipated a future ideological conflict with Dumbledore. He firmly believed that with its rate of growth, it wouldn't be long before neither Voldemort nor Dumbledore could pose a threat to him. However, in the battles to come, personal strength was only one aspect. After all, humans are inherently social beings. If he didn't want to alienate himself from the entire magical world, Ethan had to consider how to manage his relationship with Dumbledore and the broader magical community after his rise. In any society, the emergence of new forces is often met with scrutiny, co-optation, and suppression by the established powers. Given Ethan's nature, he was not one to submit quietly. If suppressing himself to avoid conflict meant clashing with Dumbledore and the magical world, conflict was inevitable, especially given his current grievances with both Dumbledore and the wizarding world. Unwilling to suppress himself, Ethan had only one resolution: to transform this unsatisfactory world into the one he envisioned. And to achieve that, he needed to find a group of like-minded individuals. In fact, Ethan had already begun this process at Hogwarts. Tonks's arrival opened up the possibility of extending his influence into the Ministry of Magic, making it seem like a strategic move. For Ethan, having a sister figure like Tonks was not only pleasant, but also visually appealing, especially since she was a metamorphmagus. A metamorphmagus has the innate ability to alter their appearance at will, including hair color and other physical characteristics, as long as the size difference isn't too significant. Known as Little Raven, Tonks could assume any form, making the mere thought of this ability delightful. With this in mind, Ethan proactively said, "Sister Tonks, There's no need to rush the illusion charm. Instead, teach me about stealth. As he spoke, he demonstrated the invisibility technique to the people in front of Tonks. The Auror watched in disbelief as they became completely transparent, achieving an effect even superior to the invisibility cloak. Tonks' reaction mirrored Hermione's upon witnessing this novel magic. "What kind of magic is this?" she asked. "Did you invent this spell yourself? Can I learn it?" Seeing Tonks as someone to win over, Ethan adopted the same approach as he had with Hermione, sharing all he knew. "It seems I've underestimated you, Brother Ethan," Tonks said, suppressing her astonishment. "So the spell you used to freeze them earlier, along with the flying light spots, were also your creations, right?" "Humph, of course. Who else but a genius like me?" Ethan replied with a hint of youthful pride. Despite his mature mind, he was still a teenager at heart. Yes, Brother Ethan is the most genius," Tonks agreed, patting Ethan's head affectionately. "Then let's make a deal. When the time comes, you'll teach me these spells in addition to invisibility." "As long as you're willing to learn," Ethan responded, setting the foundation for a powerful alliance. Ethan and his newly found companion, who had formed a temporary sibling-like bond, walked side by side, venturing deeper into the ancient ruins. As we embark on this new chapter, your support is invaluable. Please consider subscribing, casting your monthly votes, sending flowers, and leaving reviews. The success of this book is not just a testament to its writing, but also to the encouragement it receives from each one of you. Thank you for your continued support. Chapter 47, Ethan and Tonks advanced and soon found themselves back in the rotunda, near the small room where Tonks had been held captive. By chance, they encountered two wizards returning from deeper within the ruins. Just as Ethan and Tonks noticed them, the wizards opened the door to the small room and realized the situation inside. "No, the Auror has escaped. Someone must have been here. You go find the gatekeepers, and I'll alert the boss." One of them quickly commanded. "Act fast. We can't let them alert the others," Tonks decisively ordered. "Stupefy," Ethan cast swiftly. "Rictusempra," Tonks followed suit. Their quick reactions allowed them to cast spells almost simultaneously. The first wizard was struck by Tonks' spell, hitting the wall and falling unconscious. The second wizard burst into uncontrollable laughter, unable to stop despite the lack of any apparent reason. The eerie sound of his laughter filled the air. "Another novel spell," Tonks remarked, glancing at Ethan. This spell was somewhat similar to the Creaking Curse, but its effects were more potent. The laughter seemed to directly affect the spirit, making resistance difficult, if not impossible. Tonks had witnessed the man laughing so hard he couldn't even stand, much less cast a counterspell. Moreover, Ethan's reaction speed, nearly matching her own, left Tonks in awe. As a trainee Auror, Tonks was often commended for her quick reflexes, considered among the best even by Auror standards. The brother she had come to recognize was truly a genius in every sense. With neither wizard able to resist, Tonks quickly confiscated their wands and secured them. She then let out a sigh of relief. "Thank God we arrived in time. If we had been even a moment later, they might have discovered our presence. It's a blessing in disguise, isn't it?" Ethan winked at her. "Now, there are only 5 poachers left for us to deal with." "You're right," she agreed. Ethan then cast an invisibility spell, and they continued onward. They soon entered another circular stone chamber, larger and more lavishly decorated than the previous ones. The walls were adorned with reliefs depicting various magical creatures: centaurs, grindylows, chimeras, hippogriffs. Several brass braziers surrounded the chamber, with blue-white flames magically ignited within them. The most striking feature in the chamber was a huge metal door at the center, covered in ancient Celtic patterns with magical gems embedded at key points. Through the detect magic spell, Ethan could see that the door was radiating a strong magical aura. It was undoubtedly a magical door, guarding the treasure hidden within the ruins, the Scholar Moonstone. 4 or 5 wizards were gathered around the door, wands in hand, studying it intently. It seemed that this magical gate was the only thing standing between them and the Scholar Moonstone. Ethan couldn't help but think of puzzle-solving in video games, though he knew the solution here would be far more complex, involving intricate magical patterns and ancient knowledge. Tonks observed the poachers, noting their attire. They were all dressed similarly, either in dark cloaks or coats, clearly not the garb of those engaged in legitimate work. The leader wore a purple cloak and a menacing mask. "That's the leader of the poachers, Piccolo Curtis," Tonks whispered to Ethan. According to Ministry records, he rose to prominence around the same time as the Dark Lord and leads the second-largest poaching organization in the underworld. It's said they've maintained long-term connections with various dark forces. Trade relations with Death Eaters. His own behavior style is also close to that of a Death Eater. He possesses powerful magical powers and is very ruthless. You must be careful about him when the time comes. Don't worry, Sister Tonks. Facing 5 adult wizards, one of whom was a powerful dark wizard, Ethan smiled confidently. Just leave Pikol to me. I have a unique spell that can temporarily restrain him for 5 seconds. During this time, we can quickly eliminate the minions and then focus our efforts to defeat him. Okay, I believe you. Tonks hesitated for a moment, but ultimately agreed. Ethan's arsenal of homemade spells gave her confidence. Unbeknownst to Pikol Curtis, his 4 younger brothers had already been captured by the enemy, and now the 2 adversaries were stealthily approaching him. At that moment, he was focused on a magical door in front of him, trying various methods to open it. Damn it, why didn't the classics mention such a magical door in these ruins? Pikol exclaimed in frustration after another failed attempt to unlock the door. His fist struck the door heavily, producing a muffled sound. However, this level of physical attack had no effect on the door, which continued to block their path to the treasure within. Gabrielle, can you decipher the magic pattern here? Pikol turned to one of his men, who wore glasses, and urged loudly, "You've been at it for 3 hours. It's still not ready yet, boss." Gabrielle replied, almost in tears, "The magic patterns here are too ancient. There are many symbols I haven't learned. I can't solve this." Useless, Pikol cursed angrily, about to turn to another person to inquire about the preparation of an alchemy potion, when suddenly he felt an invisible force invade his mind. Before he could react, the force, sharp as an iron nail, pierced his brain, which felt as fragile as tofu. His shrill scream echoed in the enclosed stone room. After being attacked by Ethan's psychic stab, the dark wizard immediately collapsed, clutching his head, his slender fingers buried deep in his messy hair. Cold sweat formed on his tightly knitted forehead, shimmering under the firelight. The intense pain, as if his brain was being scrambled, rendered him incapable of focusing, forming coherent thoughts, or casting spells to counterattack. Pikol Curtis was temporarily incapacitated. Seeing that the enemy was no longer a threat, Ethan and Tonks emerged to take action. Ethan led the charge, expending a significant amount of magical power to cast the first wave of control on the poachers. Instant Frost Nova. The power of the ice element radiated from Ethan, quickly spreading forward in a fan shape. The unsuspecting poachers were hit in succession, their feet instantly frozen to the ground, temporarily losing their mobility. The intense cold also slowed their movements, and Tonks' attacks followed swiftly. Thunderbolt Explosion. In this moment, she disregarded the aura regulations and used the most powerful dark magic method she had mastered, something she wouldn't have been able to do until 6 or 7 years later in the original story. A powerful blasting spell exploded among the poachers, immediately seriously injuring 2 and sending them flying backward. The others vomited blood. Thunderbolt Explosion! Fireball! In the second wave of attacks, Ethan and Tonks continued with their fire coverage tactics. Several poachers were knocked back by the rumbling explosions, with few left standing to resist. This was the tactic Ethan and Tonks had agreed upon in advance. Adhering to the tactical concept of interspersing tactics when resources are limited and opting for bombardment when resources are plentiful, their approach was straightforward. Bomb the enemy first, no matter what. There were no thrilling duels, no exciting confrontations, just swift and decisive action. The magical confrontations were not even battles, but rather one-sided, indiscriminate assaults. The outcome of the skirmish was highly successful. Despite the high cost of casting such spells, the ability to obliterate the enemy in 2 swift strikes was undeniably worth it. At this juncture, Pikol had finally recovered from the excruciating pain inflicted by the Mind Stab spell. Observing the significant casualties among his ranks following the surprise attack, he oscillated between anger and fear. He was at a loss regarding the tactics employed by the enemy that not only caused him intense pain, but also robbed him of the chance to retaliate. Had it not been for the robust defense offered by his water monster skin cloak, the successive explosions would have certainly been fatal. Now he was determined to exact vengeance. Curse those Aurors and that detestable child. You dared to ambush me and decimate my forces. You have truly enraged me. Prepare yourselves, for I will ensure you rue the day you were born. Today's update 4s, with an additional updates 14. Chapter 48, Facing an Aggressive Enemy. Tonks, undeterred by the aggressive enemy before her, adhered to the principle that a dead dark wizard is a good wizard. Without hesitation, she launched an attack, shouting, "Stupefy!" In response, Piccolo effortlessly waved his wand, deflecting the red light of the stun spell with a shout of "Protego!" This action alone was enough to make Ethan feel the pressure of his opponent's prowess. The Iron Armor spell, or Protego, is a fundamental defensive spell in wizarding duels, capable of creating a magical barrier to deflect spells and physical attacks. Its effectiveness in battle serves as a key indicator of a wizard's strength. While most wizards can perform this spell, the ease and efficiency with which one casts it reveal their true mastery. Ordinary wizards must chant the spell explicitly and face attacks head-on. Strong wizards can cast it with minimal effort, using it to repel enemies. However, true masters can cast Protego silently, effortlessly deflecting attacks as if selecting vegetables with chopsticks. Piccolo's ability to deflect attacks with minimal effort placed him in the category of a strong wizard, likely between levels 13 to 15 in Ethan's estimation. For Ethan, a first-year student, and Tonks, a novice Auror, facing such an expert was daunting. "Damn, Expelliarmus!" Tonks, refusing to give up, launched another attack, with Ethan joining in. However, Piccolo easily swatted their spells aside, advancing with a proud smile. Poor and weak. Such feeble spells are useless against me." Frustrated by their ineffective spells, Tonks urged Ethan, "None of our spells are working, Ethan. Use your special attack, the one that defeated him before." "Okay, Legilimens." Ethan concentrated, channeling his mental energy into a sharp needle and launching it into Piccolo's mind. However, this time, the attack that had previously been foolproof had no effect. Piccolo barely flinched before revealing a smug smile. "No luck. Your special attack, the one that caused me headache and tinnitus, is merely a clever use of legilimency. As long as I employ a clumency, your attack is utterly ineffective. Now that all your methods have failed, you stand no chance against me," Piccolo declared, preparing his counterattack. "Reducto, Protego!" Tonks, with determination, shielded Ethan with the Iron Armor spell. Unlike Piccolo, who easily deflected their curses, the female Auror was forced back several steps by the force of the attack. The disparity in magical power between them was stark, and Piccolo's assault was relentless, not something she could easily block. On this side, after hearing Piccolo's words, Ethan felt a chill in his heart. The Scion's abilities had always been an enhancement to his magical power, a supplement that allowed him to achieve effects that magic alone could not. Whether it was detecting or charming others, in many situations where magic was ineffective, the application of psychic power could produce miraculous results. In this magical world, his psychic power had always seemed invincible, or so Ethan had thought until now. The person standing before him, Piccolo, had used a clumency to block his psychic stab. This outcome was unexpected, yet also made sense. The invincibility of psychic power stemmed from its direct action on the most mysterious domain, the spirit. Neither Muggles nor ordinary wizards had conducted in-depth research in this area, allowing Ethan's psychic powers to perform as a dimensionality reduction strike. However, this did not mean that all magical research neglected the spiritual realm. In the world of Harry Potter, the notable achievements in this field were legilimency and occlumency. Occlumency, being a defense against the mind, could naturally withstand Ethan's psychic stab. Ethan was initially shocked, but quickly regained his composure to analyze the situation. The effectiveness of occlumency against psychic stab did not render psychic powers useless. It merely indicated that psychic powers had shifted from a high-dimensional confrontation to an equal-level confrontation, losing the dimensionality reduction strike advantage. If Psychic Stab failed, it meant Ethan's psychic ability was outmatched by the opponent's, not a flaw in psychic powers themselves. After all, Psychic Stab was only a level 1 psychic power. With higher-level psychic abilities or mastery of more potent psychic powers, such as Psychic Explosion or Psychic Whipping, the outcome could still be uncertain. For now, if magical spells were ineffective and psychic powers had no impact, it was time to resort to other methods of attack. The wizards in this world needed to witness the power of arcane magic. Just then, Tonks's voice reached Ethan's ears. "No, brother Ethan, I can't hold on any longer. Use your invincible homemade magic to find a way." Looking up, Ethan saw that Tonks was pale, her pink hair disheveled, and she appeared very distressed. She was clearly outmatched by Pikol, having to resist every attack with all her might. If not for her exceptional reflexes, she would have been defeated after just a few exchanges. Now, she was struggling to keep up. "Leave it to me, Sister Tonks," Ethan said calmly, facing the enemy before him. "Grease, armor protection." Pikol, hearing Ethan recite the spell, instinctively tried to block it, but was caught off guard. Was it a summoning spell or a transformation spell? As he pondered, he suddenly felt his feet slip and nearly lost his balance. At the same time, the pink-haired Auror's attack followed. Pikol, who had the upper hand, was thrown into disarray. He nearly fell and had to kneel on one knee to support himself, managing to cast the Iron Armor Curse in time to avoid further damage. Looking down, Pikol saw a thick layer of oil covering the ground around him, causing his slip. The realization that such a simple trick had nearly led to his downfall infuriated him. "Little trick, how dare you try something different?" He glared at Ethan and forcefully swung his wand. Thunderbolt Explosion. Armor Protection. Tonks stepped forward to block the attack for Ethan, but the effort was too much and she was sent flying backward. "You're blocking well, my cousin, but what about this move?" "Shattered, shatter to pieces." With those menacing words, a second red light burst forth from the tip of Pikol's staff. After casting the explosive curse, he managed to withstand the spell's backlash and then unleashed the crushing curse, similar to Tonks. It's important to note that while wizards like Zhao Li can cast spells freely without worrying about spell slots, there are still limitations to their spell casting. Continuous use of powerful spells can be as taxing on a wizard as an engine overheating from overuse. For a powerful wizard like Pikol, casting such spells in quick succession meant he could only maintain an awkward position, lying on the slick surface of the oil layer. However, for Pikol, the trade-off was worth it. This time, Tonks didn't have the opportunity to cast the Iron Armor Curse to protect herself. He was confident that he would soon reduce his two adversaries to one. Just as the red light, filled with devastating magical power, was about to strike Tonks and obliterate her, Ethan unexpectedly moved in front of her without even invoking the Iron Armor Curse. The crushing curse hit him directly, erupting in a burst of red light. "Ha ha ha! Such a touching display of brother-sister loyalty. Someone actually used their body to block the crushing curse? I'm moved to tears." Pikol sneered mockingly. "If I had to choose something to fill this room, it would be you, because you're about to be scattered everywhere. Ha 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 ha." Today's update 6.4, additional update 7.14. Chapter 49. As the red light dissipated and the smoke cleared, Pikol was stunned to find Ethan standing before him, completely unharmed. How could that be possible? Even Voldemort couldn't withstand a full-power crushing curse without sustaining any damage. How could this young wizard, seemingly so inexperienced, manage such a feat? Pikol's confusion was evident on his face, prompting Ethan to respond with a cold smile. "You know nothing about arcane magic. Unlike the Harry Potter world, where most defensive spells like armor protection require active defense, forcing wizards to constantly be on guard and raise their shield at the sight of an attack, arcane magic operates differently. It boasts long-lasting shields like frost armor that provide a fixed amount of protection and reduce damage from each attack. Once cast, these spells allow a wizard to relax for a while." Ethan, always cautious, made it a point to venture out with his defenses up, ensuring spells like frost armor and mage armor were always active on him. The crushing curse Pikal had launched was completely absorbed by the frost armor, its damage significantly reduced by mage armor. The frost armor shattered, but Ethan remained unscathed. Had Pikal launched another attack, even a simple disarming curse, Ethan might not have been able to block it. Unfortunately for Pikal, he had no such opportunity. Protected by frost armor, Ethan had already prepared his next spell, but Pikal's mobility was severely hindered due to standing in grease. Scorching Ray. Ethan cast, unleashing a spell Pikal had never seen before. Instead of a typical magical projectile, an orange-red ray, blazing with intense light, shot from Ethan's wand. The moment it struck Pikal, he felt as though he was being dragged to the surface of the sun. Attempting to resist, Pikal cast the iron armor curse again, hoping to defend against the ray. He nearly succeeded. The iron armor curse did block the scorching ray, preventing direct impact from the laser-like attack. However, Pikal hadn't anticipated that scorching ray inflicted sustained damage, not just a one-time hit. Even at Ethan's current level, the ray lasted only a second. Ethan had anticipated that the scorching ray would be blocked, so he immediately directed the ray to sweep across Pikal's body from top to bottom. Pikal's strategy of using minimal mana to activate the iron armor curse for specific attacks had backfired. This method, while mana efficient, meant the coverage of the iron armor curse was too limited. This wasn't an issue against single-point damage, but against scorching ray. It was a fatal flaw. The ray hit the parts of Pikal not protected by the iron armor curse, from his waist to his thigh, causing severe burns and turning the flesh to char. The smell of burning flesh filled the air, but before Pikal could even scream in pain, the situation worsened. The scorching ray ignited the oil from the grease spell, and in an instant, flames engulfed the area around Pikal. The combination of grease control and elemental spell ignition, a classic arcane mage tactic, was devastating in the Harry Potter world. Surrounded by high temperatures, Pikal couldn't help but scream. When Ethan nearly fell, his body was smeared with oil. Initially, these were just ordinary stains, but as the sea of fire erupted, they transformed into talismans. Flames ignited beneath his feet and on his body, turning Pikal into a human torch. Once proud and arrogant, he now howled in agony, fleeing in panic. After escaping the fire, his body was covered in burns, resembling black coal. Yet Ethan showed no mercy, casting a disarming spell that sent Pikal's wand flying into his own hand. The dark wizard was propelled 3 meters away by the force of the spell. Tonks, who had just managed to get up, watched in astonishment. Pikal, the notorious poacher leader, a formidable figure in the underworld, was actually defeated by a first-year student like you, she said, looking at the young boy with a smile. Your elf-created magic is truly remarkable, Ethan. Feeling a surge of pride, Ethan responded, Exactly, so you'll have to study diligently under me. Once you've mastered it, you'll excel in your Auror career. Tonks, playing along with his pride, agreed enthusiastically. However, her expression suddenly changed as she warned, Be careful behind you. Ethan turned, puzzled by her caution, only to see a giant charred wolf, its fur burned off, charging at him. Despite its injuries, the wolf was swift, its attack ferocious. Ethan could see its sharp teeth and the droplets of saliva flying from its mouth. At that moment, his frost armor had just been shattered, and he hadn't had time to conjure a new one. With only mage armor for protection, Ethan doubted it could withstand the wolf's bite. In a desperate move, he dodged to the right, but it was too late. The wolf's massive body slammed into Ethan's shoulder, knocking him to the ground and disarming him. Damn, without my wand, my ability to cast spells is more than halved. Ethan panicked momentarily as the wolf prepared for another attack. Now on the ground and without his wand, his options were severely limited. Is my only option to block the wolf's mouth with my fists? He dreaded the thought. In this dire moment, Ethan realized he had to attempt casting a spell without his wand. The only spell I can use now is the expulsion curse, to repel the enemy. Just as he was about to cast the expulsion curse wandlessly, an idea struck him. He remembered the wandless spellcasting technique known as handprint from the magical traditions of Africa and the East. Why not replace the spell and wand with hand seals? I could extract the simplest and most direct parts of the spell and synthesize it into a simple spell that can be cast in an emergency with just one hand seal. Chapter 50. Ethan was pleasantly surprised to discover that he had actually understood the Dharma seal of the Demon Hunter world. The magic seal, despite its singular function, was remarkably simple to cast, requiring only a gesture of the hand. Classified as level 0 in the spell table, its effectiveness was determined by the amount of magic power input. This made it particularly suitable for emergencies and for those who preferred to wield a sword in one hand while casting spells with the other, a true Gryffindor Rapture spell. Ethan was the first to revel in this newfound ability. Unbeknownst to the giant wolf, its seemingly defenseless prey had just mastered a spell capable of perfectly countering its attack. With a mere raise of his hand, Ethan unleashed a powerful burst of energy directly from his palm, the Seal of Alder. Caught off guard, the giant wolf was propelled backward in a humiliating fashion and crashed to the ground. Before it could recover, Tonks launched her attack. Torn apart. Fueled by anger at seeing Ethan attacked, Tonks unleashed a dark curse. The giant wolf, now charred, was torn to pieces by the curse. The immediate crisis had been averted. As Tonks approached to check on Ethan, they were shocked to see the giant wolf's body transform into a human corpse. That's Picole Curtis. Despite the transformation, Tonks recognized him instantly. So, this giant wolf was actually Picole Curtis! Ethan exclaimed, turning his head to where Picole had been knocked away, only to find that Picole Curtis's body was no longer there. Picole Curtis was a hidden animagus, a secret he managed to keep for so many years, Tonks remarked, astounded. This explains how he managed to evade the Aurors on several occasions. He was indeed the leader of the poachers, always concealing something, Ethan added, feeling a chill. He hadn't anticipated that the Dark Wizard possessed such a skill. Ethan had assumed that disarming the opponent would render him defenseless. However, Picole's ability to transform into a giant wolf and launch a surprise attack could have been disastrous for Ethan had he not learned a new spell in the nick of time. Even with his enhanced physical fitness from a full suite of attribute-enhancing spells, being knocked down would have resulted in nothing more than a minor injury in the magical world, a mere flesh wound. Yet, this near defeat served as a crucial lesson. Never assume victory until the enemy's capacity to resist has been completely neutralized. Now, with the poachers either dead or incapacitated, their threat was effectively neutralized. Ethan approached Picole's body and retrieved a bone pendant from his chest, which was shaped like a griffin's beak. The most valuable item he found was a dragon skin bag, although Picole's water monster skin cloak had been burned to tatters. Ethan decided not to take it, choosing instead to leave some evidence for Tonks, as he had resolved to credit her with the dismantling of the poaching group. As for the trophies, they could be searched from Picole's men. This was a common practice among Aurors, seen as a perk for field agents. Ultimately, the siblings divided the spoils equally, with Ethan gaining about 800 galleons, significantly boosting his wealth. Additionally, he acquired a leather suitcase enchanted with a space extension spell, which could almost fit a small room inside. This was typical for a poacher's suitcase, as those dealing with magical creatures often needed large-capacity space equipment to accommodate the living space required by their captures. After settling this, Ethan approached the magical door. "Are you still planning to search for the treasure behind this door?" Tonks asked curiously, noting the effort it had taken the poachers to attempt to open it. "Can you manage it alone?" Given Ethan's prior achievements, Tonks regarded him as nearly capable of anything. In her view, nothing was too exaggerated for Ethan to accomplish. Thus, she was open to the possibility that he could unlock the magical door. "Let's give it a try." "There's no harm in trying," Ethan replied, maintaining a relaxed attitude about the prospect. After all, he had already achieved his main objectives for the trip, obtaining the Griffin beak and gaining Tonks's favor. Securing the scholar's moonstone was merely an additional goal. He knew that if he couldn't open the door now, he could always return later, as the moonstone wouldn't disappear on its own. Upon examining the magical door, Ethan discovered that, despite its complex seals and spells, which would baffle those unfamiliar with magic patterns, the spells were concentrated on the surface without affecting the internal mechanisms. The door's opening mechanism was simple. If the surface spells were broken, the surface mechanisms would trigger the door to open. Ethan realized he could bypass the surface spells and directly activate the internal mechanism to open the door. This oversight in the door's design was significant, as modern lock-picking spells differed greatly from the earlier generations of spells like Open Sesame and Open Door, which were more brute force in nature. Open Door was known for smashing the lock directly, sometimes leaving a smoking hole, while Open Sesame would tear the door off its hinges, reducing it to firewood. These methods were crude and favored by robbers for their simplicity and destructive effects. Spells for thieves have evolved over time. The modern Alejo opening spell is particularly suited for petty theft, as it unlocks the internal mechanism of a lock without causing any damage. This allows everything to be easily restored to its original state. In response, modern anti-theft magic locks have been designed to counteract the Alejo opening by casting spells on both the internal and external components, rendering them immune to such spells. The magic door we encountered was not equipped with such sophisticated design. However, it had its own method of countering similar threats by preventing external magic effects from penetrating through the magic patterns that covered its surface. Since magic could not affect the interior, the Alejo opening spell lost its effectiveness. The challenge, however, did not deter Ethan. If he intended to directly manipulate the internal machinery, he didn't need the Alejo opening spell. His psychic powers were more than capable of accomplishing this task. The magic shield could block magical energy, but it was powerless against psychic energy. The ancient builders of these ruins could not have anticipated the existence of an individual like Ethan in the future. Thus, Ethan stood in front of the magic door, pressed his ear against it, and let his mind probe the mechanical structure within. After about half an hour of careful manipulation, there was a soft click, and Ethan successfully adjusted the internal mechanism to the correct position. The mechanism on the door activated, and the heavy magic door rumbled as it opened. Chapter 51. As the magic door swung open, Ethan and the scholar Moonstone faced no more barriers. They advanced through the corridor that lay beyond the gate. Ethan immediately noticed something extraordinary about this place. Unlike the manually excavated underground palace and corridors they had encountered before, with walls lined with artificial stone bricks and slates, this corridor was a natural path. Flanked by natural stone walls on both sides, it essentially formed a rift valley, concealed within the mountain. This valley stretched long and deep, its final section submerged underwater, seemingly part of an underground stream. The two followed the valley to its end, where Ethan realized the truth of the saying, "The mountains and rivers are no longer in doubt." The path, initially narrow, revealed its secrets only to those who persevered. However, instead of a cultural village with flat land and scattered houses, they were greeted by a vibrant natural landscape hidden within a cave. Ethan was taken aback by the beauty concealed deep within the ruins of 173. Upon seeing this place, Tonks was captivated by its scenery. Yet, calling it a cave did not do it justice. It was more akin to a valley. Moonlight streamed through a vast crack at the top, illuminating the pure land within the mountain. An underground river flowed through, with its banks and even the mountain walls adorned with lush vegetation. Lilies of the valley and various other flowers were interspersed among the herbs and shrubs. Ivy and other vines blanketed the rock walls, but the most striking feature was the enormous oak tree situated on a small slope at the valley's center. Bathed in silver moonlight, this ancient tree spread its branches wide. Birds flitted through its canopy, while insects and moths buzzed around its roots, creating a scene of harmony and peace. The ecosystem hidden deep within this cave is fascinating, Ethan observed, nodding in appreciation. No wonder the ancients chose this place to safeguard the wise moonstone. It's a testament to the vitality of nature. "Do you know who built this place?" Tonks inquired, her curiosity piqued. "Of course," Ethan replied, his voice carrying a note of reverence. "The history here is likely older than you imagine. The first to discover this valley and establish these ruins were the ancestors of this land, the ancient Celts." He explained that both the style of the reliefs in the ruins and the mountain paradise itself pointed to this conclusion. In ancient Celtic times, wizards were not known as such. The people adhered to what was called Druidism, the precursor to modern wizardry. Many traditions in both the Muggle and Wizarding worlds today, including the 13-month Celtic calendar and the corresponding trees for each month, are inherited from that era. Ollivander, for instance, still selects wandwood based on this tradition. The word druid originally means one who is wise about oak trees, Ethan continued. They revered nature, with the oak tree as their sacred symbol. This explains the presence of the oak tree in this valley. These ruins were likely a spiritual retreat and gathering place for the ancient Celtic druids, with this oak tree at its heart and the scholar moonstone as a revered treasure. After taking in the scenery, Ethan approached the oak tree. Nestled within a large hollow, a crystal blue-green orb emitted a soft blue glow, the scholar moonstone, the object of both Ethan's and the poacher gang's desire. Holding the stone, Ethan felt a gentle power coursing through him, a testament to the ancient magic it contained. Under the watchful eyes of Tonks, Ethan carefully pocketed the scholar moonstone. After securing the precious item, he turned to the female auror beside him and asked, "Sister Tonks, you won't reveal our secret here, will you?" "Of course not. Since you've addressed me as Sister Tonks, it's only right that I help you keep your secret," Tonks replied, shaking her head. "I'll inform the Ministry of Magic that I stumbled upon a group of poachers in the mountains and forests outside Irondale and managed to eliminate them all by a stroke of luck. As for their reasons for being here, I'll claim ignorance." Ethan expressed his gratitude. "Thank you so much, Sister Tonks." Tonks modestly responded, "Actually, I should be the one thanking you. You freed me from captivity and played a crucial role in apprehending most of these poachers. I merely assisted you." "Don't downplay your contributions," Ethan countered. "Without your help, I couldn't have defeated Picole Curtis on my own. Besides, you cast the forgetting curse from me, concealed my presence, and kept the secret of the Scholar Moonstone. You've done so much without informing the Ministry of Magic, and I'll always remember your help." Tonks continued, "You deserve the main credit. You could have been awarded at least a second-class Order of Merlin for this. But now, I'm taking all the credit. I owe you one." "Don't worry about it," Ethan reassured her, waving his hand dismissively. "We're in this together." "You're right, we are in this together," Tonks said, smiling warmly. She then added, "Hiding your involvement was a wise decision. As a first-year student at Hogwarts, excelling in your studies is one thing, but it's best to keep your self-created magic and involvement in defeating a dark wizard under wraps for a few years. Some people might be overly sensitive about such matters." Ethan appreciated her concern. "Don't worry, Tonks. I understand the implications and will remain cautious." After handling the prisoners and evidence, Ethan and Tonks parted ways in Irondale. With a heavy heart, Ethan used the Flu Network to return to the Leaky Cauldron, while Tonks went back to the Ministry of Magic to request support for the cleanup operation. Lying in the comfortable bed of his room at the Leaky Cauldron, Ethan felt his tense nerves begin to relax. He reflected on his achievements from the mission. Firstly, he had acquired 2 significant trophies: the Griffon's Beak, a crucial ingredient for the elixir of the Eternal Eagle Majesty, and the Scholar Moonstone, a mysterious and valuable treasure. Although unsure of its immediate use, he was relieved it hadn't fallen into the wrong hands. Secondly, Ethan had made a substantial monetary gain. Initially, he had earned 700 galleons from selling second-hand items during the semester. The loot from the poachers added nearly 1,000 galleons to his funds, bringing his total assets to 1,500 galleons, a considerable sum. According to Tonks, this amount was significant even when compared to the salary of an auror. Aurors earn a salary of 140 galleons per month, a figure that reflects the high risk associated with their profession. Trainee aurors, like her, receive a slightly lower salary of 100 galleons. This amount is considered high, especially when compared to the earnings of most Ministry of Magic employees, who also make around 100 galleons a month. Ethan's salary is nearly equivalent to the Weasley family's annual income, highlighting the lucrative nature of his position. In Gringotts, Muggle-born wizards have the option to exchange money at a rate of £5 British for 1 galleon. However, this rate benefits only Muggle-born wizards, as the real purchasing power difference between British pounds and galleons is closer to 20-1. To put it into perspective, 1,500 galleons is almost equivalent to 30,000 pounds or 300,000 yuan. Considering the 1990s, this amount could purchase 3 houses in the 4th Ring Road of Beijing, illustrating the substantial value of his earnings. With such a significant sum at his disposal, Ethan felt confident about securing a more comfortable life in the magical world. Comforted by this thought, he gradually drifted off to sleep, his mind filled with images of the Valley of Remnants, a scene depicted in Hogwarts Legacy. Chapter 52. Ethan's payment to Old Tom was sufficient for a week's stay at the Leaky Cauldron, yet he spent less than 2 days there. On the morning of the 3rd day, Nymphadora Tonks arrived at the Leaky Cauldron, brimming with excitement, and escorted Ethan to her home. They had previously agreed to spend the Christmas holidays at the Tonks residence after parting ways in Irondale. Nymphadora Tonks's background is far from ordinary. Her mother, Andromeda Black, a pure-blood witch, was the second daughter of the Black family and sister to Bellatrix Lestrange and Narcissa Malfoy. Bellatrix, a fervent supporter of the Dark Lord, and Narcissa, Lucius Malfoy's wife, were prominent figures in the wizarding world. Andromeda, however, was the family's rebel. After marrying Ted Tonks, a Muggle-born wizard, she was disowned by her family. The Tonks family resided in a modest house on the outskirts of Enfield. Their life, though not luxurious, was filled with happiness. Ethan received a warm welcome at their home, hailed as a hero by Tonks for saving her life from poachers. Despite the potential risks of revealing Ethan's involvement to the Ministry of Magic, he was treated as an honored guest and enjoyed a lavish welcome banquet. The menu featured an array of exquisite dishes, showcasing the culinary finesse expected from a witch of pure-blood heritage. The meal, a delightful twist on traditional French cuisine, left a lasting impression on Ethan. The banquet was not only in Ethan's honor, but also celebrated Tonks's recent achievements. She had single-handedly defeated Peekle Curtis, leader of a notorious poaching group, and eradicated his core team. Her bravery earned her commendations from the Ministry of Magic, including the Order of Merlin, 2nd class, and a substantial bonus. This victory positioned Tonks for rapid advancement within the Auror office, potentially reducing her internship from 3 years to just 6 months. Furthermore, Tonks shared news of an invitation from a deputy director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, a significant figure within the ministry. This invitation was a clear indication of her rising status and potential for future promotion. Tonks sought Ethan's opinion on the matter, valuing his insight despite his young age. Her achievements and the recognition from a high-ranking official underscored her promising career trajectory in the Ministry of Magic. Ethan's mature demeanor and intelligence had earned him Tonks's respect and confidence, leading her to consult him on such important matters. So she decided to seek Ethan's opinion. Ethan himself had not personally experienced the intricacies of officialdom, but in his previous life, he could be considered a key official. He had some understanding of the complex and shadowy nature of bureaucrats, certainly more than Tonks, a novice. Ethan suggested that when faced with such an invitation, there was no need to accept immediately, nor to outright refuse. He advised to take some time to think it over and use the opportunity to gather information about the deputy director, while also considering other potential offers. With her achievements, Tonks had the leverage to be selective, until Tonks mentioned the deputy director's last name. "Are you saying the deputy director who invited you is a woman named Proudmoore?" Ethan was so taken aback by the surname that he stood up abruptly. After encounters with Senior Sister Cyrilla, Water Ghost Brain, and a troll, he had become particularly attuned to elements from other worlds. "Is your deputy director named Gianna?" he asked urgently, grabbing Tonks's sleeve. Yes. How do you know?" Tonks was startled by his intensity. Ethan, however, pressed on without answering. "Does this Gianna have blonde or white hair?" "She's blonde. Why would you think she has white hair? She's only 36 years old." "Blonde hair, 36, deputy director." Ethan thought to himself, If this is indeed the Jaina I'm thinking of, it means her arrival in the Harry Potter world predates the destruction of Orgrimmar. After Jaina used the focusing iris to destroy Orgrimmar, she suffered from arcane erosion, turning her hair white. When did your deputy director join the Ministry of Magic? Ethan inquired further. So, you're also interested in Deputy Director Gianna? Tonks, now fully awake, spoke with admiration. Deputy Director Jaina is a legend in the Ministry of Magic. Rumored to hail from a secluded wizarding family and without a Hogwarts diploma, she joined the ministry 11 years ago. Her powerful magic quickly earned her the respect of the entire ministry. With her unique abilities, she played a significant role in tracking down Death Eaters. At that time, many believed she could become the next great white wizard. Unfortunately, Miss Proudmoore later shifted her focus to her career. Thanks to her exceptional work ethic, she climbed the ranks and was appointed Deputy Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement last year. But regardless, she remains an inspiration for non-pureblood and female wizards alike. Is that why you admire her? Ethan nodded. Indeed, Jaina was one of the two central heroines of World of Warcraft. Even in a different world, she continued to make her mark. However, the timeline of her arrival and the emergence of other elements from another world raised more questions in Ethan's mind. Hey, what are you thinking about? Tonks's voice snapped Ethan back to reality. You haven't told me. Should I accept Miss Proudmoore's invitation? Of course, you must accept it, Ethan replied without hesitation. Hey, but didn't you say I should wait and see just 10 minutes ago? Why the change? Tonks was puzzled. That was before I knew we were talking about Lady Proudmoore. Ethan interjected. If you had mentioned Miss Proudmoore earlier, I would have immediately advised you to accept. I see, Tonks said with a teasing smile. So even a prodigy like you can become a fan. I thought someone as confident as you, who even dared to critique Dumbledore, wouldn't admire anyone. Clearly, Lady Proudmoore's allure is universal. Even if you support me, I have decided to accept the lady's invitation when I return. I don't worship. Forget it. That's what you think. Misunderstood by the other party, Ethan pondered for a moment before deciding to forego further explanation. After all, achieving his goal was what mattered most. Ethan encouraged Tonks to accept Proudmoore's invitation, aiming to create opportunities for interaction. It seemed as though Ethan was intentionally seeking out contact, similar to his approach with Cirilla. In his view, these visitors from other worlds shared a common perspective with him. They were all like rootless duckweeds, aware of forces beyond their world, possessing powers superior to those of this world's natives, and having a broader vision. They were more likely to become allies in his eyes. Ethan harbored the ambition to revolutionize the magic system of this world with arcane magic. In the current era, where muggles were predominant and wizards were bound by the statute of secrecy, Ethan was deeply dissatisfied. He believed that magic had the potential to foster a civilization as advanced as any technological society. Given the chance, he aspired to cultivate a magnificent magical civilization and venture into other worlds. He was confident in his ability to achieve this. The arcane magic system encompassed spells capable of traversing the star realm and piercing through the crystal wall system. Ethan was certain he could accomplish this, provided he reached a new level in his arcane magic research. However, realizing such a vision required substantial support in terms of manpower and resources. Alone, even if he were to innovate a new magical system and surpass Dumbledore in prowess, it wouldn't suffice. He needed more allies. Hermione, Cirilla, and the Tonks were among those Ethan had chosen for their potential. Yet, potential alone was not enough. It required time to transform into tangible power. Until then, someone needed to pave the way, or them. Ethan's initial strategy involved leveraging force and sharing benefits to persuade the wizarding world's established powers to support his vision. However, the arrival of Miss Jaina Proudmoore presented a new opportunity. Miss Jaina Proudmoore, you surely don't wish to find yourself unable to return to your homeland of Azeroth. Chapter 53. In addition to future prospects and status, Tonks received 2 other rewards this time. The Order of Merlin Medal would not be awarded until later, but she had already received her bonus. Feeling she deserved all the honors, Tonks wanted to give her entire galleon bonus to Ethan. Ethan, always modest with financial matters, did not refuse her generosity outright, but insisted on leaving half for Tonks. As a result, his total assets now amounted to 1,800 galleons. The remainder of the vacation was a joyful time for Ethan. Mr. and Mrs. Tonks were wonderful people who greatly appreciated their daughter's benefactor. Ethan's likable demeanor, mature character, and the blessings of his supernatural abilities, perhaps also mixed with sympathy for his life experiences, earned him treatment almost akin to that of their own child. This overwhelming enthusiasm, however, made Ethan slightly uncomfortable. During these days, Ethan's activities included engaging conversations and reading at the Tonks' residence, as well as accompanying Tonks on shopping trips in Diagon Alley. He also introduced Tonks to the Muggle world in London, where they purchased numerous Christmas gifts. Following the Wizarding world's tradition of exchanging gifts among relatives and friends during Christmas, Ethan embraced this custom wholeheartedly, receiving many presents himself. Professor Flitwick gifted him a personal magic book, a token of his high expectations. His friends from Ravenclaw, including Stephen and Kevin, presented him with various magical snacks. Hermione gave him a Conway Stewart handmade pen, having realized that Ethan's automatic pen was not enchanted, but worked through the scribe spell. Along with the pen, Hermione included a letter of apology for a past misunderstanding, to which Ethan responded with a letter of understanding, amused and touched by her sincerity. Mr. and Mrs. Tonks gifted Ethan 2 sets of fine clothes, concerned he might not have enough to wear. Tonks herself presented him with an Auror's combat belt, designed to hold potion bottles, speculums, and other gadgets for easy access during battle. Ethan was most surprised by gifts from Zhang Chu and Cirilla, handmade mung bean cake and a shiny knife, respectively, reflecting their unique backgrounds. Ethan's gifts to others were mostly Muggle specialties, reflecting his own background. Feeling this was somewhat inadequate, he resolved to learn alchemy the following year to create magical items as gifts. Additionally, he made a significant donation of £500 to the Lurky orphanage, where he was born, despite the unfavorable exchange rate from galleons to pounds, as a gesture from the heart. Tonks did not receive a traditional Christmas gift from Ethan. Instead, he offered her a week-long special magic training session. During this week, Ethan taught her 5 simple yet practical arcane spells: dancing lights, mage armor, grease, invisibility, and mirror shadow technique. Although he wished to teach more complex spells, time constraints and the significant differences between arcane magic and the native spells of the Harry Potter world limited them to these 5. After much effort, Ethan left Tonks with a note promising to answer any questions and suggesting further learning could continue during the summer vacation. As the holiday season passed in the blink of an eye, Ethan looked forward to the challenges and opportunities the new year would bring. Ethan reluctantly waved goodbye to the Tonks family and boarded the train to Hogwarts. Returning to Hogwarts was undoubtedly a pleasure for Ethan. The young wizards, having been home for 2 weeks, reunited and excitedly shared their holiday experiences with each other, which gave Ethan a headache. What holiday experiences could he possibly share? That he broke into a cave occupied by a group of poachers, rescued a captured Auror, and together with the Auror, wiped out the entire poacher gang. Not to mention, there was absolutely no way he could tell anyone about it. Even if he did, who would believe such a pat tale? So whenever someone asked him about his vacation, he resorted to using all-purpose responses. Really? Really? And after? This set of 3 worked well every time. After navigating through numerous conversations with young wizards, Ethan finally encountered someone with a serious matter to discuss. It was the Gryffindor expedition team, but their demeanor was a bit odd. Hermione and Harry flanked Ron as if they were escorting a prisoner, and they pushed Ron, who was looking down, towards Ethan. "This is what you are." Ethan was a bit confused. "Ron?" Hermione and Harry urged. So, Ron looked at Ethan, his mouth twitching and his face flushed. It took him a long time before he managed to squeeze out an apology. "I'm sorry, Ethan, about what happened before the holiday. I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have treated you that way." This entire sentence, 26 words long, took him a minute to say. Ethan didn't react at first, taking a moment to understand what Ron was referring to. With his maturity, Ethan wouldn't hold a grudge against a group of 11-year-old children over such a trivial matter due to inexplicable jealousy. So, he nodded and replied, meeting the expectant eyes of the other party. "It's nothing, Ron. I've already forgotten about that." That's good. Ron's face finally relaxed. Being forgiven by Ethan meant that he not only restored a friendship, but also reconciled with his other two friends. The feeling of being accused of wrongdoing by two friends was too uncomfortable. The other two in the trio seemed a bit relieved compared to Hermione. The man didn't interrupt but wore an uncomfortable smile. The happiest among them at this moment was Hermione. She had been hiding secrets from Ethan, which gave her an inexplicable feeling of guilt, as if she had betrayed him. This feeling was strange to her because she had kept several secrets from Harry and Ron, such as the self-made spells Ethan taught her privately. Why didn't she feel guilty about keeping secrets from Harry and Ron? Weren't they all friends? Hermione didn't understand this, but she was very happy that she no longer had to bear that kind of guilt and could speak openly in front of Ethan. So she said bluntly, "Ethan, do you still remember that big dog with 3 heads? In fact, we have been trying to figure out what it is protecting." She did not forget to provide what they thought was key information. "We guess that this thing is what Professor Snape wants to get." Harry said that he had seen bite marks on Snape's leg. In addition, Professor Snape hexed Harry during the Gryffindor versus Slytherin match. Ron also hurriedly added, "We asked Hagrid before, and he accidentally mentioned the name Nicholas Flamel. We guessed that what Snape wanted to get must be related to him." "That's why you were trying to figure out who Nicholas Flamel was," Ethan concluded. Ron nodded awkwardly, which was why he had a problem with Ethan in the first place. The worst part was, during this holiday, they still hadn't figured out who Nicholas Flamel was. Even if. Hermione returned home for the holidays, leaving Harry and Ron at Hogwarts. They had initially planned to use this time to delve into books and uncover the truth about Nicholas Flamel, determined to find answers without relying on Ethan. However, their plans were thwarted by unforeseen distractions. Harry stumbled upon the Mirror of Erised, an enchanted mirror that reveals the deepest and most desperate desires of one's heart. Mesmerized by the sight of his parents and the illusion of a happy life with them, Harry found himself drawn to the mirror, unable to pull away. Ron, on the other hand, struggled with his own challenges. Every time he attempted to read, he was overcome by an irresistible urge to sleep, which ultimately led to their failure in discovering the identity of Nicholas Flamel. After their efforts led them in circles, they realized they had no choice but to place their hopes in Ethan once again. Apologies for the confusion with the updates. The update's cache, scheduled for May 4th, was mistakenly released in advance on August 15th. Chapter 54. Ethan did not disappoint them and revealed the identity of Nicolim. Nicholas Flamel was a famous alchemist and a partner of Professor Dumbledore. He then lowered his voice, adding a touch of mystery. Not only that, but he is also the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. Ethan had expected a barrage of surprised reactions like, "Ah? Why is it him?" Instead, he was met with Harry and Ron asking in unison, "What is the Philosopher's Stone?" Ethan was almost amused by their ignorance. He looked at Harry and Ron, their faces the epitome of confusion, and couldn't help but see it as a clear display of their lack of knowledge. Hermione's face flushed with embarrassment, feeling as though she had brought 2 country bumpkins into the city, only for them to cause a scene. The shame was so intense, she wished she could disappear into the ground. She rolled her eyes at them and explained, "The Philosopher's Stone is an artificial red stone with magical properties. It can be used to create elixirs that extend the life of the drinker and can also turn any metal into pure gold." Upon hearing Hermione's explanation, Harry and Ron were stunned, especially Ron, whose mouth hung open wide enough to fit an entire apple. Ethan nodded and added, "The only remaining Philosopher's Stone known to the wizarding world belongs to Mr. Nicolame. He celebrated his 665th birthday last year and now lives in seclusion in Devon with his wife Perenelle. That big dog must be guarding Flamel's magic stone." Hermione speculated, "I dare say that Flamel asked Dumbledore to keep it for him, because they were friends, and he knew someone was trying to get the Philosopher's Stone. That's why he moved the Philosopher's Stone out of Gringotts. A stone that can turn gold and make you immortal forever, Harry realized. No wonder Snape is also trying to figure it out. Anyone would want it. No wonder we can't find Flamel in research on the development of modern witchcraft, Ron remarked. Since he is 665 years old, he can't be considered modern, right? With this new information about Nicolim, the adventure team felt they were one step closer to uncovering the final secret. However, for Ethan, it was back to normal study and life. Aside from regular classes, there were several Quidditch matches to prepare for. For instance, in the game against Hufflepuff, Ethan first showcased his talents, leaving Hufflepuff with no chance of retaliation. Yet, Hufflepuff had always been the underdog in the Quidditch Cup. The real challenge would be the matches against Slytherin and Gryffindor, especially Slytherin, who were Ravenclaw's next opponent and the long-standing champions of the Quidditch Cup. Even with Ethan as a new addition, Ravenclaw was in a state of intense preparation. On the eve of the match, all activities in the Ravenclaw common room ceased. Captain Roger diligently polished and waxed the brooms, hoping to dazzle the Slytherin team with their shine. Zhang Chu meticulously checked the brooms for any defects, repairing them with spells to prevent any sabotage from Slytherin. A lesson learned from past experiences with Harry. However, Ethan felt that if this over-preparation continued, they might not need any external interference to encounter problems. Professor Flitwick, known for his remarkable memory, visited the lounge 6 times a day, now seemingly forgetful, a stark contrast to his usual sharpness. He repeatedly asked Ethan and Sorella if they were confident in defeating Slytherin. Hermione even sneaked into Ravenclaw to visit Ethan, explaining, "I couldn't stay in the Gryffindor common room. It was too noisy, and I couldn't concentrate." It seemed the Gryffindors were more anxious than the Ravenclaws. After Ravenclaw's match, it was Hufflepuff versus Gryffindor. Since Ravenclaw had previously won against Hufflepuff by a large margin, Gryffindor was now third in the standings, only above Hufflepuff. Everyone knew that Gryffindor's captain, Oliver Wood, was determined to win this year's Quidditch Cup with Harry's help. The referee for the game was none other than the Slytherin head, Snape, who was notoriously biased against Gryffindor. The question on everyone's mind was how his bias might influence his decisions during the game. Despite their disdain for Slytherin, the Gryffindors found themselves supporting Slytherin in the match against Ravenclaw. Their reasoning was simple. They had already defeated Slytherin once, and Ravenclaw had accumulated too many points. If Ravenclaw were to win again, Gryffindor's chances of clinching the Quidditch Cup would diminish. Practicality overcame rivalry in this instance. Hermione, though a Gryffindor at heart, found herself torn. Ethan, a member of the Ravenclaw team and a dear friend who had once saved her life, commanded her loyalty. Thus, she found herself sneaking in to offer her support before the game. Seated on the lounge sofa, Hermione held a Quidditch tactics book, earnestly trying to offer Ethan advice and explain the strategies she had gleaned from the book. Ethan listened attentively, then gently pointed out the flaws in her reasoning. Hermione, realizing her mistake, blushed with embarrassment. Her attempts at offering advice, effective with Harry and Ron, seemed amateurish with Ethan. It was a humbling reminder that there were always others with greater insights. Yet, Ethan appreciated her efforts, finding joy in their interaction. Among the Ravenclaws, only Ethan and Sorella were truly confident about the upcoming game. They were well aware of each other's strengths and the synergy they could bring to the field, a combination potent enough to be formidable even in professional leagues. This confidence allowed Ethan to take a lighter approach, even in the face of widespread nervousness. "No one is born a Quidditch expert," Ethan said kindly, offering to teach Hermione over the summer. Hermione's flying skills were notably poor, her fear taking over before she could get a few meters off the ground. Yet, Ethan found her efforts endearing, much preferring her company to that of Sorella, who was far more adept in the air. This preference mirrored the way some boys enjoyed experiencing haunted houses and horror movies with girls who were easily frightened. After Ethan's offer, Hermione felt a surge of excitement, despite her usual aversion to flying. Summer vacation? Okay, I'll remember that. Also, you must work hard for the next game. Ethan replied, nodding in agreement. Chapter 55. The game begins. Come Saturday, the excitement was palpable as the Quidditch pitch filled with students eagerly entering the stadium. Blue and green flags fluttered everywhere, creating a vibrant and warm atmosphere. The first to enter is the Ravenclaw team, announced Lee Jordan, the usual host for these games. Cirilla, Ethan Green, Davis, Zhang Chu, outstanding players, entered the field one by one. I must say, this is the strongest Ravenclaw team we've seen in recent years. His statement prompted nods of agreement from the young wizards around, especially the senior students who were well aware of Ravenclaw's transformation under Cirilla's leadership. Though I'm a Gryffindor, I must admit, after watching Ravenclaw's last game, Ethan Green and Cirilla Ray Allen are the most formidable duo in Hogwarts history. Lee's commentary was momentarily drowned out by boos from Slytherin, but cheers quickly overpowered the dissent. Even Hufflepuff, despite their previous defeat, couldn't deny the legendary performance of the duo in the last game. As the Ravenclaw team gathered at the center of the field, Cirilla appeared to share a word with Ethan. What could the best partners be discussing? Tactics? The secret to their seamless cooperation? Lee mused, his curiosity getting the better of him. Deciding to inject a bit of humor, he began to read their lips, first mimicking Ethan's voice. Cirilla, what do you think of Lee Jordan? Then, in a higher pitch for Cirilla, oh, Lee, he's fantastic, passionate and humorous, the best commentator. Ending with, thank you, Miss Cirilla, in his own voice. This jest earned a glare from Cirilla, even from a distance, her sharp eyes making Lee visibly shrink. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Cirilla, no offense meant, he quickly apologized, adding, wow, Miss Cirilla's glare is more intimidating than the Bloody Baron. His exaggerated fear elicited laughter from the crowd. Ethan, standing on the field, reassured Cirilla, don't worry, he'll come and apologize after the game. Cirilla, unamused, asked, do you think my eyes are scary too? Ethan, choosing his words carefully, complimented, on the field, your eyes, they're like those of a Valkyrie. You have a way with words, Cirilla chuckled. Ethan then rallied his team. Under the leadership of our Valkyrie, Ravenclaw will surely win. The team united their hands over his, chanting, Ravenclaw must win. Even Roger, the captain, joined in. Despite being overshadowed by Ethan and Cirilla, he was content with his role, knowing his name would be honored in the trophy room. Soon after, the captains shook hands and Mrs. Hooch signaled the start of the game. Ethan soared into the air on his Nimbus 2000, swiftly passing the quaffle to Cirilla as the game officially began. Lee resumed his commentary. Both teams have started with their standard formations, with Ethan and Cirilla alternating possession of the ball. Their synergy was evident from the start, reminiscent of their legendary performance in the last game, where they scored 120 points. On the 12 of 13 shots in just 15 minutes, Ethan and Cirilla showcased their defensive prowess, allowing their opponents only 2 goals. I'm eager to see what kind of spectacular performance they'll deliver in this game, the commentator mused. Indeed, Ethan and Cirilla lived up to the expectations, dominating Slytherin from the outset. The duo unleashed the full speed of their broomsticks, taking turns to breach Slytherin's defense. The Slytherins, unprepared for such a coordinated assault, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their defense crumbled like a sieve against Ethan and Cirilla's relentless attacks, reminiscent of an eagle preying upon grounded snakes. Even attempts at double teaming were futile, as the pair skillfully passed the ball between them, assisting each other in scoring. Slytherin's captain, Marcus Flint, had arrogantly claimed he could single-handedly take down the first-year player, but instead, he found himself trailing in Ethan's wake, achieving nothing. In less than 5 minutes, the score soared to 60-0, a more dismal performance than even Hufflepuff's. This prompted the Hufflepuff spectators to quip, "It's not that our team didn't try, it's that the eagle has gunned 'em. See, Slytherin isn't faring any better." Frustrated, Slytherin resorted to their notorious foul play. Given Ravenclaw's disadvantage in physical stature and their aversion to physical confrontations, Slytherin managed to make some headway offensively. However, they were still unable to stop Ethan and Cirilla. During one such moment, Slytherin's beater, Derek, took a swing at Ethan with a bludger, despite Ethan not possessing the quaffle. Ethan, sensing the incoming bludger without needing to look, swiftly changed direction and accelerated, narrowly avoiding the bludger, which then redirected towards Marcus Flint. Flint, caught off guard with his view obstructed by Ethan, was struck squarely by the bludger, breaking his nose and knocking him off his broom. The crowd gasped at the dramatic turn of events. Dumbledore and Snape, watching from the stands, cast spells to slow Flint's fall. Ethan, realizing the potential danger, acted quickly. He delayed raising his broom, instead accelerating downwards to match Flint's fall. Just before landing, Ethan cast an alder sign, a shockwave, on the ground to cushion the impact. This clever use of a wandless, nonverbal spell went unnoticed by the spectators. Cirilla, witnessing Ethan's quick thinking, said nothing but returned to her defensive position. Ethan's swift actions allowed him to catch Flint before he hit the ground, preventing a more serious injury. This moment of quick thinking and skillful flying not only averted a potential disaster, but also highlighted the depth of Ethan's abilities on the Quidditch field. Ethan sustained secondary damage to the bridge of his nose, but the outcome of the match was already clear. He was thoroughly outplayed by Ravenclaw. Following the loss of their captain, Slytherin's morale plummeted, allowing Ravenclaw to extend their lead to 200-10. It was under Ethan's escort that Zhang Chu finally caught the golden snitch, bringing the game to a close. The Ravenclaw team's victory was met with loud cheers, celebrating not just this win, but also their consecutive victories by large margins. This virtually guaranteed Ravenclaw the Quidditch Cup for the semester. The Ravenclaw players were nearly carried back to Hogwarts in triumph, but the level of celebration didn't stop there. After dinner, a party was organized in the common room, receiving rare approval from Headmaster Flitwick. He arranged for the house elves to prepare a feast, and the long table in the lounge was laden with delicious food. Some of the older students even purchased butterbeer with their own money to ensure the younger years could join in the festivities. Ethan hadn't anticipated that the outfit gifted by Mr. and Mrs. Tonks would come in handy so soon. The party kicked off with a speech from Professor Flitwick, who led another round of cheers for Ethan and his teammates. Afterward, Flitwick tactfully exited, leaving the students to their celebration. The Ravenclaw common room quickly turned into a hub of joy, with students clustering together, sharing drinks, engaging in conversations, playing games, and dancing. As one of the day's key players, Ethan was the center of attention. His peers surrounded him, eager to hear about his experience and the strategy behind targeting the Slytherin captain with a bludger. Ethan, not wanting to dampen their spirits, engaged with them patiently until Steve approached him with a sense of urgency, pushing through the crowd to reach him. "What's the matter, Steve?" Ethan asked, stepping aside as Steve pointed out that senior sister Cirilla was looking for him. The mention of Cirilla caused the previously bold senior to step away respectfully. Ethan, puzzled, inquired why she sought him out. Steve admitted he didn't know, but informed Ethan that Cirilla was waiting to speak with him alone in another room. Thanking Steve, Ethan set his butterbeer aside and made his way through the teasing crowd to the indicated room. Upon entering, he was greeted by the sight of Cirilla, her familiar gray hair cascading down as she leaned against the windowsill, gazing at the sky. Despite the party atmosphere, Cirilla had chosen a simple yet striking outfit, with an asymmetrical skirt that showcased her elegance and strength. Acknowledging his arrival, Ethan approached her with a light-hearted comment about being rescued from the endless conversations. Cirilla, however, had a more serious topic in mind. She questioned Ethan about his use of Alder's Seal, a topic that shifted the mood from celebratory to intriguing. P.S. The Hogwarts Quidditch Cup operates on a total points system rather than a simple win-loss record. Each of the 4 houses competes in 6 games per semester, facing each of the other houses once. The cup is awarded based on the total points accumulated across these matches. In the competition, victory or defeat is determined by the points equal to your score in the game. The total score is the sum of points from all 3 games, indicating that a high score in one game can secure the championship, even if the other 2 games are lost. Ravenclaw managed to clinch the victory in advance because their total points from the first 2 games reached 620. This means that even if they didn't score at all in the final game, the other houses would need to average over 200 points per game to surpass them. Given that Slytherin and Hufflepuff only managed to score 10 and 20 points respectively in their matches against Ravenclaw, it's virtually impossible for them to overcome a 600-point deficit in 2 games. As for Gryffindor, they have already played 1 game, the game where Harry was framed in the original novel, scoring 170 points, leaving them 450 points behind. With their next game being hosted by Snape and a match against Ravenclaw, it's nearly impossible for Gryffindor to catch up to Ravenclaw. Additionally, it's worth noting that butterbeer does not actually contain alcohol. Chapter 56. The Seal of Alder. Ethan was startled when he suddenly heard the name Seal of Alder from someone else. In the blink of an eye, he wanted to say something to deflect the conversation. At that moment, Cirilla's words sounded faintly. "You won't get away with it, Ethan Green. Unless you want to lose me, please don't do this. I can see your gestures and the shock waves clearly. Believe me, I am very familiar with this seal." "So where did you learn this seal?" Cirilla asked, and Ethan realized that escaping was no longer an option. He had to show his hand. "If I said that I realized this Dharma seal myself, would you believe it?" Ethan said sarcastically. "You? Realized it yourself?" Cirilla sneered. "Then how do you explain this?" Almost without warning, Cirilla took a step forward, her movements unhindered by her dress. Ethan caught a glimpse of black under her dancing skirt, but had no time to dwell on it, as her palm was already swinging towards his face. "Seal of Alder," she announced, followed by Quen's seal. A whoop sound followed, and a shock wave burst from Cirilla's palm, though it was very weak and only stirred a breeze. However, this breeze couldn't even touch Ethan's hair, as a shield had suddenly appeared to protect him firmly. Ethan realized he had been tricked. Cirilla's move was merely a test, with no intention of attacking. Otherwise, the effect of the Seal of Alder wouldn't have been so weak. She knew that faced with such a sudden attack, without a wand and unable to use the Iron Armor curse, Ethan's only defense would be to trigger the Quen's seal, assuming he had indeed learned the Dharma seal. Now, her successful temptation had Ethan feeling exposed under her teasing gaze, as if to say, "Look, you've just revealed your secrets." Despite his thick skin, Ethan felt compelled to clarify. "Don't get me wrong, what I said is true. I did understand this set of seals myself." He continued, pushing past the look of skepticism. "But there's one thing I didn't mention earlier. I can also observe the world you're from." "The world I'm from?" Cirilla, who had been watching with folded arms, suddenly looked astonished. "You know I'm from another world? I thought you were taught this magic by someone else." Ethan shook his head. How could there be so many people who can casually travel to another world, and that person would have to be a witcher? If that were true, it would be too coincidental. "You actually know about the Witcher?" Cirilla immediately believed him. "You mentioned time travel." "Yes, moving from one world to another is what I call crossing," Ethan explained. "In other words, did I also travel through my world?" Cirilla murmured. "That's right, just like you can jump through space to other worlds." Ethan nodded in confirmation. "You even know this?" Cirilla was even more surprised, then shook her head. "Unfortunately, after coming to this world, I seem to have lost the ability to travel through time." Cirilla was referring to her ability to travel based on the ancient blood. That ability did allow her to travel between several planes, but those planes did not include the world of Harry Potter. "This is not surprising because the fact that you can travel into this world is special in itself," Ethan said. "In other words, this world is special. From a certain time, it became able to attract visitors from other worlds. The reason why you came here is not your own ability to travel," Ethan explained. After hearing this, Cirilla nodded in agreement. "I guess so. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a coincidence. There would be no reason for the species from my world to accompany me to this one, as I can't bring my abilities with me. So many complications arise from this." After saying that, she looked at Ethan. "By the way, since you mentioned it, you're also a time traveler." Ethan nodded. "I come from a world devoid of magic and arrived here 11 years ago." So, you turned into a little baby after you arrived here, Sheely chuckled. Given how composed ye usually are, I would have guessed you were an old man in his 70s or 80s before you traveled through time. I'm not that old. Ethan immediately protested against the slander. You don't need to explain. It doesn't matter to me anyway. Sheely waved her hand dismissively and shared her experience. I'm different from you. I was 12 years old when I came here, which was 4 years ago. Initially, I could only survive on the streets, but a few days later, an owl delivered a letter of admission to me, and then Professor Flitwick appeared and took me to Hogwarts. Then you're in luck, Ethan nodded. But after losing your grandmother, being separated from your adoptive parents during the war, and then finding yourself trapped in another world, it must have been tough. Through the details of Cyrilla's age when she traveled through time, Ethan quickly pieced together her experiences before the journey. You're right. You actually know about me. Could it be that your so-called observation is just spying on me from another world? Cyrilla said, adopting a vigilant stance. Despite the situation, Ciri's ability to joke showed her optimistic nature. Absolutely not. What is this, voyeurism? Ethan felt a chill and quickly clarified. Think of it as an effect similar to a precognitive dream. Like a precognitive dream, I can't choose what I see. The only difference is that what I see pertains to a different world. After hearing this, Sheely nodded. Given how much you know about me and my world, I believe you. So these seals of yours were inspired by the seals from my world. Bingo, Ethan nodded. Then you calling me by my name on the day of admission. That's right. I didn't expect to meet the characters from my precognitive dreams. It wasn't until then that I realized everything in the precognitive dream was true, Ethan said, partly truthfully. He quickly added, but befriending you wasn't intentional. I just thought, since we're both from different worlds, you know. I understand, Sheely smiled warmly. Don't worry, knowing this doesn't change the fact that we're good partners and friends. And don't you think that sharing our secrets brings us even closer? I'd love for you to think so, Ethan said with a smile. Okay, I've asked all my questions. Sheely put away her smile and sighed softly. I didn't expect this matter to be so complicated. You've given me a lot to think about. She looked at Ethan. So, do you have anything else to ask? As of today, I've told you everything I know. Ethan raised his head, pondering for a moment. Actually, I do have a question. Do you know the reason behind this collective time travel? I've been wanting to know the answer to that question too. Sheely spread her hands. But even with your intelligence, I'm clueless. However, I can share the clues I've found, she continued. Initially, when I arrived in this world, I didn't grasp the gravity of the situation and thought it was merely a manifestation of my own abilities. It was only in my second year that I realized something was amiss. For a whole year, I had been unable to use my powers freely. At the same time, I saw a photo of a Fenter in a newspaper. You know, Fenter, the giant monster with antlers. I had always thought it was unique to my hometown, as there had never been any mention of Fenter monsters in the books of this world, and the newspaper also. It was said that this creature was a newly discovered monster, Ethan mused, reflecting on the beginning of his journey into the unknown. His curiosity piqued. He had since dedicated himself to gathering information about these unique beings he referred to as hometown specialties. As Ethan delved deeper, he realized the diversity of these creatures was far greater than he initially thought, and many had been discovered before his own arrival. For instance, the first recorded encounter with a water ghost dated back 10 years. Fenter was discovered 6 years ago. The Howling Monster, 8 years ago. Evil Ghosts, 11 years ago. Oh, and Sageweed, also 10 years ago. Despite his best efforts, Ethan acknowledged his limitations in uncovering the full extent of these mysteries. Thank you for your hard work, he silently commended himself. Pondering over the timeline, Ethan noted, 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 11 years ago. I arrived here 4 years ago, and Gianna, 11 years ago. He realized that according to all available data, the earliest evidence of these otherworldly entities appeared no more than 11 years ago. This led him to conclude that the phenomenon of time travel, or at least its significant increase, began around that time. What happened 11 years ago? Ethan wondered, his thoughts interrupted as he suddenly looked down at his thighs, a habit when deep in thought. Yes, 11 years ago. That was when I traveled to this world. He then shifted his focus to his readers, understanding the importance of support for his work. Getting a new book on the shelves isn't easy. Please consider giving me an automatic subscription. Your monthly votes, reviews, and rewards mean the world to me. If you have any tickets, I would deeply appreciate your support as the author. This is truly important to me. Chapter 57. The Source of Anomalies. Ethan suspected that he was the source of all the anomalies, and he had good reason to believe so. His knowledge spanned various worlds from his previous life, including Harry Potter, The Witcher, Dungeons & Dragons, D&D, and World of Warcraft. However, the abnormal elements appearing in the Harry Potter world seemed to originate from these universes, yet they were not native to them. Ethan was puzzled by the origin of these anomalies, as they were unfamiliar even to him. The magic Ethan was familiar with was primarily derived from these other worlds. Notably, the Witcher series, which did not seem to exist in the Harry Potter universe. In Ethan's previous life, the Witcher series, including games, TV series, and movies, were all based on a Polish novel series. However, in the world of Harry Potter, not only were the novels absent, but the author Andrzej Sapkowski might not even exist. Similarly, the popular D&D board game from Ethan's previous life had vanished without a trace. Ethan realized he was the only one in this world who knew the origins of these magics, anomalies, and time travelers. Moreover, these elements had all appeared 11 years ago, suggesting that before Ethan's arrival, there had been no intersection between the Harry Potter world and these other universes. After analyzing these clues, Ethan concluded that he, Yating in his previous life, and Ethan Green in his current life, was undoubtedly the cause of all effects. Ethan speculated that the information from another world might represent the coordinates of that world, and his arrival somehow provided this world with the coordinates of a different universe. However, without research on time travel and crystal wall travel magic, Ethan could only guess at the mechanisms behind these phenomena. He decided to keep these conjectures to himself, fearing the implications for others like Ciri and Jaina if they knew they were in another world because of him. So have you figured out anything? Ciri's voice interrupted his thoughts. Ethan looked up to see her gazing at him with concern. I have a theory, he replied calmly. Perhaps 11 years ago, a change in the world's rules caused beings from other worlds to accidentally cross over. I might have been among the first affected, which altered my ability to observe other worlds. That makes sense, Ciri nodded in agreement. Ethan then asked, have you ever thought about returning to your own world? Of course, I have, Ciri responded immediately. I miss my adoptive parents, Geralt and Yennefer. You must know them since you've observed me. I wonder if they survived that night. They must have been worried about me these past few years. Her voice trailed off, filled with longing. Ethan offered comfort. If it's any consolation, you've escaped the war by traveling through time. If you can grow up safely in this world, they would be happy for you. Thank you, Ciri said, her spirits lifted slightly. You're very kind. Ethan shrugged. We're both out of place in this world, so we should support each other. Besides, there might still be a chance for us to return. What? Ciri's eyes widened in surprise. Do you know how to go back? Indeed, Ethan nodded. I've come across similar magic in my observations. I once saw a world where magic wasn't just inherited by blood. Muggles with sufficient intelligence could learn magic. In that world, Muggle technology was advanced, and magic was accessible to all who sought it. Powerful mages are the masters of the country, having fully explored and harnessed the power of magic to benefit society. They ushered in a magical civilization, creating cities that rose and floated in the air, transforming and controlling nature to manipulate climate, sunlight, and rain. Magic and semi-magic items became widespread, reaching thousands of households, much like how Muggles popularized their technology. This civilization was a testament to the glory of magical prowess. As rulers, mages wielded authority akin to that of gods, viewing deities as merely powerful beings. Among their remarkable achievements was the development of magic capable of traversing the crystal wall system to other worlds. Ethan referred to the renowned magical empire of Netheril from the D&D worldview, a civilization surrounded by both admiration and skepticism for its claims. Yet, the existence of a spell for navigating across crystal walls was undeniable and of great interest to Ciri. "Does such a magical civilization really exist?" Ciri asked, astounded by Ethan's description. In her world of witchers, powerful wizards and witches served merely as royal advisors, with magic achieving far less than what was described of the magical empire. "It is as real as your world," Ethan assured her confidently. "So, magic that crosses the crystal wall system exists?" Ciri clung to Ethan's sleeve, desperate for hope. "Yes, it does exist," Ethan confirmed, then tempered her expectations. "But mastering such magic is immensely more challenging than understanding the Witcher's seal. It demands profound magical knowledge, along with significant manpower and resources." "Tell me, what conditions and resources are needed?" Ciri's confusion turned to determination, ready to strive alongside Ethan to achieve this goal. Seeing the determination in Ciri's eyes, Ethan knew she was fully committed. "Good. Let's start with a small goal, building a floating city." Their clasped hands symbolized their shared ambition. Suddenly, Ethan added, "Oh, by the way, I wasn't an old man before I traveled through time." "Why do you still care about that?" Ciri responded, somewhat exasperated. Chapter 58. After Ravenclaw's victory over Slytherin, the icy grip of winter began to loosen, heralding a new chapter in the lives of the young wizards at Hogwarts. Within Ravenclaw, whispers and rumors started to circulate about the burgeoning friendship between Cyrilla and Ethan, a first-year student, especially noticeable since the memorable Quidditch match. It was not uncommon to spot Cyrilla forsaking the company of her best friend Penelope to share laughter and conversations with Ethan in the castle's 8th-floor corridor. This development sent shockwaves through the ranks of senior boys, who had long admired Cyrilla, the most sought-after girl in Ravenclaw. The idea that a newcomer could capture her attention simply by playing Quidditch stirred a mix of envy, jealousy, and resentment towards Ethan. However, Ethan remained largely oblivious to the storm of emotions his friendship with Cyrilla had unleashed. To him, the envy and jealousy from his male peers were inconsequential, even slightly amusing. Yet the truth was, his relationship with Cyrilla was innocent and platonic. At 11, Ethan was just beginning to navigate the complexities of adolescence, far from pursuing romantic relationships. Their frequent meetings were purely for the purpose of practicing magic in the Room of Requirement. Cyrilla, hailing from the world of witchers, had shown a keen interest in honing her magical abilities after learning there might be a way to return home. She eagerly sought Ethan's assistance to strengthen her powers, aiming to support his ambitious goals. Cyrilla's magical talent was undeniable, surpassing even that of Hermione Granger in certain aspects. Though she might not match Hermione's intellectual prowess, Cyrilla's innate abilities and her ancient blood made her a natural source of magic, as described by the warlocks among the witchers. Her transition to the world of Harry Potter had curbed her previous struggles with controlling her magic, allowing her talents to flourish. She effortlessly recreated several Witcher sigils from memory, showcasing her exceptional aptitude. Ethan found that Cyrilla's approach to learning magic was intuitive rather than academic. She might not grasp the theoretical aspects, he explained, but she could mimic his spellcasting techniques based on instinct, mastering them with surprising ease. This intuitive learning style allowed her to quickly grasp simple spells, such as the fireball technique, in just a day. However, more complex spells like the mirror shadow technique and identification proved challenging for her. Yet in combat, Cyrilla favored straightforward, impactful magic, showing a preference for elemental spells like Burning Hands and Frost Nova. Ethan marveled at Cyrilla's inclination towards close-quarters combat, combining physical prowess with melee spells. Her background as the adopted daughter of a witcher and her future as a female witcher were evident in her combat style. He pondered the possibility of helping her master the skills of a magic warrior. As Ethan and Cyrilla continued their extracurricular interest classes, with the goal of traveling to the floating city and navigating the crystal wall system, most of their peers remained unaware of the true nature of their partnership. Their focus was on strengthening their magical abilities, oblivious to the rumors and speculations swirling around them. Many young wizards had already exhausted their energy just by learning the content covered in class. The Easter holiday had passed in the blink of an eye, and with summer and final exams approaching, the library was bustling with students poring over materials. Ethan didn't spend as much time in the library as before, but whenever he was there, he could always spot Hermione and the two reluctant companions, Harry and Ron, who were often dragged along. Hermione, who seemed to possess a bit of Ravenclaw's love for learning, was an unusual Gryffindor. She had a genuine passion for academics and was determined to compete with Ethan in terms of grades. Hermione C. confidently stated, "It doesn't matter if I can't match you in extracurricular knowledge. When it comes to what we learn in class, I believe I can keep up with you." Her sense of pride was evident. Harry and Ron, true to their Gryffindor nature, found themselves in a predicament. They spent their days sighing and yawning, overwhelmed not only by the plethora of homework assigned by their teachers, but also by the rigorous study plan Hermione had devised for them. They couldn't fathom why anyone would start reviewing for finals 2 months in advance. They struggled to understand Hermione's high expectations for them. As her Gryffindor friends, she didn't want them to fall short in front of Ethan. Eventually, the beleaguered duo saw a chance for a reprieve. They approached Ethan with a sense of mystery, informing him that Hagrid had something exciting to show them and inviting Ethan to join. "You two actually thought of me when something exciting comes up? My help wasn't in vain, after all," Ethan remarked, feeling a mix of relief and bemusement. He immediately realized what they were hinting at. Hagrid's dragon egg had arrived. Truthfully, Ethan was hesitant to get involved. Witnessing the dragon egg meant entangling himself in a series of troublesome events, such as the confrontation with Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest and the subsequent adventure through the trapdoor. Getting involved contradicted his principle of maintaining a low profile. However, upon further reflection, he recognized the opportunities this invitation presented. Ethan had always wanted to explore the Forbidden Forest, known for its abundance of medicinal ingredients crucial for permanent potions, but had never ventured there due to his unfamiliarity with it. Now, with Hagrid offering to guide him, it was an opportunity too good to pass up. Moreover, Ethan was intrigued by the legendary ultimate secret of alchemy, the Sorcerer's Stone. This might be his last chance to see the Philosopher's Stone in person. While staying under the radar was important, the allure of the Philosopher's Stone was too compelling to ignore. Perhaps he could glean new insights from it. After all, his initial principles set at the beginning of the school year seemed somewhat out of step with the evolving reality of his expanding knowledge and strength. Besides, he had never seen a dragon in this world with his own eyes. Ultimately, given the enthusiasm of Harry and Ron, and not wanting to disappoint them, Ethan agreed to join them. "Very well, let's go," he said, to their evident excitement. "Since you're coming, Hermione will have to let us go to Hagrid's," they exclaimed. Ethan realized, "You've been using me as a way to get around Hermione for quite some time, haven't you?" Thus, on their way to Hagrid's hut, Ethan had to endure Hermione's disapproving gaze. Upon nearing the hut, Ethan sensed an unusual surge of energy from his wallet. Opening it, he discovered it was the Scholar Moonstone acting up, leaving him puzzled. As they arrived, Harry stepped forward and knocked on Hagrid's door, pausing Ethan's concern about the Scholar Moonstone for the moment. Hagrid's wooden door was exceptionally thick, requiring considerable effort to open. Ethan speculated that the half-giant might be using the door's weight as a makeshift security measure, given that even the unlocking spell, Alohomora, proved ineffective against it. "I'm coming," boomed Hagrid's voice from behind the door. Moments later, his large, furry head appeared, scanning the surroundings before inviting the 4 visitors inside. Upon entering, Ethan noticed that all the curtains were drawn tightly shut. Hermione, with a hint of concern in her voice, asked, "Hagrid, have you been up to mischief again?" Hagrid's eyes widened in surprise. "Why would you accuse me without reason?" he protested. "Taking care of creatures is part of a gamekeeper's duties. How could that be considered mischief?" Yet, his defense only made them more suspicious, prompting them to scan the room curiously. Seeing their intrigued expert, Eschians, Hagrid sighed in resignation. All right, I was going to share this with you eventually, but you must promise to keep it a secret. They all eagerly agreed, reassuring him of their trustworthiness. With that, Hagrid bent down and used an iron hook to open the stove. Inside, amidst the glowing coals, lay a peculiar ellipsoid object, a large black egg. Despite the intense heat, the egg remained unscathed, a testament to its extraordinary nature. Upon closer inspection, it was evident that the eggshell was not smooth, but covered in sharp, needle-like protrusions. It appeared rough, almost abrasive, and was far from being perfectly round. It was, unmistakably, a dragon egg. Ethan's mind raced with thoughts upon seeing it. Could it be that this egg's rough texture was a natural adaptation? He theorized that if the egg was this coarse, the female dragon must have incredibly thick and resilient skin to lay it without harm. Following this logic, the male dragon must have evolved to match, perhaps with a mace-like appendage to ensure comfort for the female during mating. This rough egg hinted at the rugged nature of dragon biology, a fascinating insight into their world. Updated 5/4, additional update 9/17. Chapter 59, Is This a Dragon Egg? In addition to Ethan, Hermione also recognized the identity of the egg. Hagrid was momentarily stunned before laughing happily. Miss Granger, you actually recognize it. Hermione nodded. I've only seen its pattern in books before. Hagrid, looking as delighted as a 500-pound child, exclaimed, Yes, dragon eggs! This is a Norwegian ridgeback egg, very rare. As he spoke about dragon eggs, he became as detailed and concerned as a mother about to give birth. Oh, I've been reading up on them. It says to put the eggs in the fire because their mother breathes on them. You see, it says here that after it hatches, you should feed it a bucket of brandy mixed with chicken blood every half hour. He then pulled out a large book from under the pillow, revealing more related books on the bookshelf in the distance. Fire Dragon Species in Britain and Ireland, Raising Dragons for Fun and Profit, From Dragon Egg to Hell, A Guide to Raising a Fire Dragon, and The Man Who Dotes on Fire Dragons. Everyone looked at the dragon eggs nestled in the charcoal fire of the stove, a bit surprised. Ron, with a hint of worry, asked, Hagrid, raising dragons is illegal, right? What if someone discovers it? Harry also chimed in, Hagrid, does Dumbledore know about this? Hermione pointedly added, Hagrid, don't forget you live in a wooden house. Ah, this? Hagrid faltered, at a loss for words. Ethan shook his head, thinking they could have been more tactful. Hagrid had called them here with good intentions, just to share his joy, yet they bombarded him with concerns. Ethan coughed lightly and tried to smooth things over. Indeed, there are many challenges in raising dragons here, but at least Hagrid can care for it for a few days before the dragon grows too large for this house. Yes, that's it, Hagrid quickly agreed. So, in the following days, visiting the dragon eggs became a rare relaxation for Harry and Ron. Hermione also recognized the problem, but was curious about the dragon eggs. Not wanting to seem too eager, she insisted on bringing Ethan along every time. Visiting the dragon eggs became their collective pastime. During these visits, Ethan noticed that whenever he was near Hagrid's hut, the scholar's moonstone would shine. However, once he returned to the castle, the light would dim. He deduced that this must be related to the Forbidden Forest and resolved to investigate it further when he had the chance. One day, Harry received a note with just 4 words, hatching soon. Seizing the opportunity during their lunch break, they all hurried to Hagrid's hut. Hagrid greeted them, his face flushed with excitement. This morning, I noticed it began to shake more and more violently, and I guessed it must be hatching. He opened the stove lid, revealing the egg in the red charcoal fire, shaking every few seconds as if something was eager to emerge. You all saw it. It's moving, Ron said excitedly. The little guy is coming out, Harry observed intently. Let me take it out of the fire, Hagrid said, donning a pair of thick dragon leather gloves large enough to serve as a hat for Ethan. Carefully, he removed the dragon egg from the stove and placed it on the table. A deep crack had formed on the egg, and a comical clicking sound emanated from within, likely the young dragon tapping its mouth. Everyone drew their chairs closer to the table, holding their breath and watching intently. Suddenly, with a harsh scratching sound, the egg cracked open, and a sharp, hard nose poked out. It's out! It's out! Oh my gosh! Hagrid was so excited he began to sob as if the baby dragon was his own child. More and more eggshells broke away, revealing a baby dragon. The newborn was not exactly beautiful, resembling a wrinkled black umbrella. Its spiny wings appeared particularly large compared to its body, adding to its unique charm. Its thin black body also boasted a long, prominent nose with white nostrils and horns atop its head. Pimples dotted its skin, and its orange-red eyes bulged outward. Yet Hagrid's affection was unwavering, akin to the kindness of an old woman. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Hagrid murmured, reaching out to gently touch the little dragon's head. Despite the dragon biting his finger, revealing its long, pointed teeth, Hagrid's excitement was palpable as he exclaimed, "Oh my God, look, it knows its mother." At that moment, Ethan glanced at the dragon eggshell on the table and inquired, "Hagrid, could I have some of this eggshell?" Without hesitation, Hagrid responded generously, "Of course, take it if you need it." Ethan had observed that Hagrid, though seemingly modest, was in fact quite wealthy in his own right. His dealings in the Forbidden Forest had allowed him to amass a collection of valuable materials. Indeed, the cushions in his home were crafted from eight-eyed spider silk and unicorn hair, materials coveted for making top-notch enchanted cloaks. Madame Malkin in Diagon Alley would indeed be envious. Thus, Ethan eagerly collected the eggshells, recognizing their potential as an optional auxiliary material for permanent elixirs. While the sight of newborn dragons playing and spitting fire was mesmerizing, concerns lingered. "Hagrid," Hermione inquired, "how quickly does a Norwegian ridgeback grow?" Ethan interjected, "In a week, it will triple in size, and in 3 weeks, Hagrid's house will no longer suffice." The thought of it breathing fire painted a grim picture of Hagrid's cabin in flames. Caught off guard, Hagrid eventually conceded to their request to keep the dragon only for 2 weeks before giving it away. Ron volunteered to contact his brother Charlie, a dragon trainer, to arrange for its relocation to Romania. After spending more time with the little dragon, they left Hagrid's hut. Ethan chose not to mention that he had sensed Malfoy's presence earlier. Without Malfoy's interference, how could Harry and Ron face future punishments? Their adventures in the Forbidden Forest were essential, and if a bit of trouble with potion ingredients could lead them there, so be it. Malfoy would take the blame in the end. As expected, Malfoy's smug demeanor soon alerted Harry and Ron to the fact that their secret was out. They hoped for the dragon's swift departure to eliminate any evidence and mitigate the risk. The plan to send the dragon away was set for midnight on Saturday, and they prepared for their final visit. The appointed night was dark and cloudy. At Hagrid's cabin, a disheartened Ron confessed to Ethan that Malfoy had seen the letter from Charlie due to his oversight. "He must know we're planning to take Norbert away," Ron admitted, ashamed. "It's okay, we have an invisibility cloak, which Malfoy doesn't know about," Harry reassured. "But the cloak can't cover all of us," Ron whispered. Ethan and Hermione exchanged glances, and she nodded. "Mr. Green and I have other ways to avoid Malfoy." As the night unfolded, their plan to protect the dragon and themselves from Malfoy's prying eyes was set into motion, underlining the unity and resourcefulness of their group. Chapter 60. Farewell to Norbert. When the 4 friends arrived, Hagrid had already packed Norbert into a large crate, ready for his departure. "I've prepared a lot of mice and some brandy for him, enough to last the journey," Hagrid said in a somber tone. "I also put his teddy bear inside, so he wouldn't feel lonely." At that moment, a tearing sound emanated from the crate, as if the teddy bear's head had been ripped off. "Goodbye, Norbert," Hagrid said soothingly. "Mom won't forget you." Ethan shivered upon hearing these words. The thought of a male dragon being called Mom was unsettling to him. Harry considered covering the crate with an invisibility cloak, but Ethan stepped forward, taking the initiative. He grabbed the edge of the crate and pointed his wand at himself. In an instant, both Ethan and the crate became transparent. You really know how to use the illusion technique," Harry exclaimed, impressed. "No wonder we couldn't find you during our last night trip." "Uh-huh, that's right. Just remember not to tell anyone else," Ethan replied, not bothering to explain the difference between invisibility and the disguise curse. Then he noticed Hermione on the other side doing the same, also becoming transparent. You all know how to use the illusion body technique, Ron exclaimed, feeling a bit left out. Why didn't you take us with you when you secretly learned this spell? That requires you to learn it well. It's a skill that even senior students may struggle with, Hermione retorted before Ethan could respond. If you achieve good or above in all subjects this semester, then I believe you can learn it too. Upon hearing this, Ron's enthusiasm deflated. Achieving good scores in all subjects was a daunting task for him. His own goal was merely to pass. That, I was just saying, Ron mumbled, retreating under Harry's invisibility cloak. Harry, motivated by a desire not to be looked down upon by Ethan, silently vowed to excel in the final semester. It wasn't just about learning the phantom body curse. After all, with the invisibility cloak, he didn't need it. More importantly, he didn't want to be underestimated by Ethan, a long-term friend who had become exceptionally outstanding. The four successfully delivered the crate to the tower, encountering only one minor incident along the way. At the base of the tower, they stumbled upon Professor McGonagall in her plaid dressing gown and hairnet, dragging Malfoy by the ear. "Silence! 20 points from Slytherin," she shouted. "Wandering around in the middle of the night, how dare you?" "You don't understand, Professor. Harry Potter is coming, and he's bringing a dragon with him," Malfoy protested, unaware that the very people he was accusing were standing less than 5 meters away. "It's complete nonsense. How dare you concoct such a lie? Come on. I want to see what Professor Snape does with you, Malfoy." With that, the four watched as Professor McGonagall led Malfoy away, feeling a sense of schadenfreude. Atop the tower, they dropped their invisibility and awaited Charlie's friends. When Harry and Ron struggled to carry the crate, they looked at Ethan with a mix of awe and fear. "Can I ask, Ethan, how did you manage to move the crate to the roof in one go without even breaking a sweat?" Harry inquired cautiously. "How could he?" Hermione interjected. "You cannot use magic while maintaining invisibility, or rather, while hidden." "So, you mean he did it with his own strength?" Ron asked, his voice tinged with disbelief as he stared at Ethan's slender arms, his eyes wide with amazement. Ethan, the young wizard, was filled with fear. He hadn't anticipated the formidable strength of his opponent. In that moment, he was profoundly thankful for his prior interaction with Hermione. Under Harry's insistence, Ethan had apologized, averting what could have been a dire outcome without the need for magic. His opponent's sheer physical strength was intimidating enough. Despite their cautious assent, it was their dissent that proved problematic. Harry and Ron, leading the way, rounded a corner only to encounter Filch, the caretaker, having forgotten the invisibility cloak atop the building. Ethan's quick thinking saved the day. He swiftly pulled Hermione aside, cautioning her with a saying, "A dead Taoist friend is not a poor Taoist." He meant that Harry and Ron were already caught, and it was best not to exacerbate the situation. Hermione, swayed by Ethan's logic, cast an invisibility spell on them both, allowing them to escape without further loyalty to their caught friends. The following day, Ethan entered the dining hall for breakfast and immediately sensed an unusual atmosphere among the students. He noticed Harry, Ron, and Neville looking particularly dejected, with Neville's eyes swollen as if he had been crying. Hermione was there, offering comfort in hushed tones. The events of the previous day had clearly taken a toll. Ethan's gaze then shifted to the large hourglass displaying the House Cup scores. Gryffindor's hourglass was nearly empty, a stark contrast to the day before. A few scattered rubies lay at the bottom, a pitiful sight compared to Ravenclaw's hourglass, which was brimming with sapphires, largely thanks to Ethan's contributions. Gryffindor, which had been in second place, now seemed destined for last. Their previous lead over Slytherin vanished. The cause of this dramatic shift was soon revealed. Harry, Ron, and Neville's misadventure had cost Gryffindor 150 points. Harry and Ron were caught in the act, and Neville, attempting to warn them about Malfoy, was also caught. Professor McGonagall, furious, deducted 50 points from each. Harry, once a celebrated hero of Gryffindor, had become a source of shame. The Gryffindors shunned them, openly insulting them without restraint, while the Slytherins reveled in their downfall, applauding and cheering whenever they passed by. Even though Draco Malfoy lost Slytherin 20 points, the trade-off was seen as a victory, propelling Slytherin ahead of Gryffindor. Hermione felt a mix of shame and relief. Had she not heeded Ethan's advice, she too might have been part of the debacle. Her decision to follow Ethan's pragmatic approach spared her from sharing in Gryffindor's collective downfall, highlighting the wisdom in choosing discretion over blind loyalty. Ethan couldn't bear the thought of being one of those being laughed at.